No? Okay. All right, Kaylani, are we set up?
The tribe is ready to go. I am getting us set up on Facebook right now.
Okay, and can you begin the recording as well?
I have started the recording.
Okay, and we'll start while you get the Facebook Live going. That's fine, no problem. 9:04, not bad. This is Scott Bischke. I appreciate being able to host this meeting, or I should say facilitate it. By my count, this is the 45th public meeting of the IBMP since the 2008 GAO report, which is quite remarkable. We want to make sure, just a couple things to begin with. One is just to remember why the group formed. The 2000 Record of Decision had two goals in it: to maintain a wild and free-ranging population of bison and to address the risk of brucellosis transmission to protect the economic interest and viability of the livestock industry in Montana. I'd like to read that at the beginning just to recall why this group formed. It started with 5 groups: APHIS, Park Service, DOL, BOL, and Custer-Gallatin National Forest, and then the three tribal groups, the Salish Kootenai, the Nez Perce Tribe, and ITBC were added after that in 2010, I believe. Let's see, I'm gonna turn it over to Kaylani Scott at the Nez Perce Tribe. She ran the meeting in December and is running the meeting again. There shouldn't be a lot of confusion, Kaylani, but maybe if you can just mention about the Facebook Live and so forth, and also your chat lines and anything else that you want folks to know.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'll just be here. I'll be managing the chat. We don't have any slides this time from my understanding, so we don't have to be concerned with those. But if you're having any issues, feel free to message me, and I am also recording this, and so I'll send out that video once this is complete.
Great, super, Kaylani, and much appreciated for the recording. If people haven't noticed, on the last 2 meetings, they have been recorded and those have been posted as part of the meeting report. Let's begin with the Nez Perce Tribe is the lead partner for 2021, and Quincy Ellenwood is the lead partner group, and Quincy Ellenwood is the lead partner. Quincy, do you have some opening greetings that you would like to provide?
Yes, I'd just like to say good morning, Touch Maywood, everybody. It's
Quincy, you got some feedback still. I'm not sure what's going on there. Any chance that you have 2 microphones on, possibly? I'm sure anybody else in that room is muted. We can, if you want to play with that for a second, we can come back to you.
You can stay on there. You just have to turn off your volume and then turn off your microphone. How's it sound now?
We can hear Kaylani great. Quincy was, I'm not sure, I can't see who's all sitting in the same room or not, but Quincy's was.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. But
Right.
Good morning, Touch Maywood, everybody. I hope everybody's being safe. Yeah, we made it through another winter, another hunting season. There's going to be some work in progress. I just wanted to announce too as well, the Nez Perce Tribe is moving to stage 4 starting today. The COVID protocols and social distancing, which allows groups of 50 or more, but still following social distancing and having personal protective equipment, face masks, sanitation, all that. And so we're hoping that maybe in August, or definitely in the wintertime, we'll be able to have a in-person meeting if it's permitted with the other entities. But I just want to say welcome, good morning to everybody. It's good to see you all. Hope to see you guys in person here shortly. And I'll turn it over to any of the staff or Commissioner Holt if they want to add any open comments. Is there anything? Okay, yeah, we're good, Scott. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Quincy. So remembering that one of the things in the 2008 GAO report was that the partners needed to improve transparency. Of course, that has ended up with the 45 meetings, with a pretty exhaustive website. And in this case, with the Zoom calls, just to restate something that has gone through the partners, but may not be out on in the public quite as well. On the IBMP meetings page, there is the link for the Facebook Live. Presumably, if you're in the public, you're watching that now. But on that same page is a Google form where you can provide input to the partners. And then, as has been the last 2 meetings, I send out those comments to the partners, and then it becomes part of the public record. The meeting goal per partner protocols, the partners developed a set of protocols for how they operate. The meeting goal for this meeting is, I'm just going to read it from the partner protocols, a review of winter operations to date and begin collecting, if applicable, ideas for adaptive management changes for the following winter. So the underlying goal of today is really to look at winter operations, how they're going, and then also things that we see ahead, and then as well as a number of updates. We'll start with the partners each having, let's say, up to 3 minutes, partners in treaty hunting tribes, just to say hello. Because we're on Facebook Live and it's a little different than when we're in person, maybe introduce yourself first, just so folks know through the public venue. And then also, as I said, this will be recorded and posted. And when there's a new partner, partners like to take a little extra time to introduce them. And Mike Valesky, I think, is going to start with an introduction of Marina, who is, I will say, maybe you're going to say this, Mike, but Mark Delaray sort of hid the fact that he was retiring. And so that was not even brought up in December. Mike, oh, you got your microphone off too.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Mike Valesky, I'm Chief of Operations here in Helena for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. I've been involved in IBMP stuff for at least 15 years now in one capacity or another, governor's office or at FWP. And so I haven't had to do that much lately because our Region 3 supervisors have been covering that aptly, and Marina will be the next one to do that. You all, depending on how long you've been around, you've all known Pat Flowers and Sam Shepard and Mark Delaray. And Mark did, like Scott said, sneak out kind of quietly into retirement. And so Marina Yoshioka is his replacement, and I'm not going to steal Marina's thunder. I think I want her to introduce herself, but we've been welcoming Marina since about mid-January into this job. She's not new to FWP. She's done a few other things for us, but she's quick study and highly capable, and I'll let her take care of her introduction from there. Good to see you all.
Hey everybody, I'm Marina Yoshioka. As Mike said, I'm the new regional supervisor for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks here in Region 3. I've been with FWP for the better part of a decade. I started as a park ranger and then have spent the past 5 years as a park manager in different parks around the state of Montana. We're excited to be here and meet everybody.
Super. And as we go through, folks, be thinking about one of the themes today has to be, or will be a bit, that we have this new, the vaccine is out and changing life in our, if you want to make any comments about how your group is dealing with that, potentially coming out of a pandemic type of work life, please feel free. I don't know, Marina, if you want to add anything about that, and if not, no worries.
I'll just say that we're still following our social distancing and COVID protocols as per the Department of Administration. And we're looking forward to being able to return to normal once everyone's vaccinated and things open up.
Super, thank you. We'll go on to APHIS. Ryan?
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you still hear me okay?
We can hear you great. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, well, I'm a little embarrassed to say that this monitor I have is so old that it doesn't actually have a camera. So I'm looking a little COVID homeless anyway, so I'll we can skip the video.
Fair enough.
I missed the last meeting, so it's good to be back. APHIS, as far as an agency, still has a travel ban on, at least through this month and probably the next. It enables only essential work to be done by anybody in the agency, and the majority of the agency, even folks in Washington, are working virtually from their home. I would like to say, though, we have kind of a bright spot in the agency. FEMA asked APHIS to provide vaccinators to vaccinate people across the nation at the federal vaccination centers, and APHIS fulfilled that need. We've sent so far about 150 employees to 11 or 12 different states to actually vaccinate people. So I just got back myself on Friday from vaccinating people in the Las Vegas Convention Center, which was an interesting gig. So anyway, the agency is kind of providing some proactive work to get rid of the disease and to end the pandemic. So we appreciate the opportunity to that FEMA gave us to do that. Other than that, I really don't have anything to add. I will introduce myself for Marina a little bit. I'm a staff veterinarian for APHIS Veterinary Services, the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, which is more or less the federal animal health veterinary service. And I've been based here in Montana, working for APHIS almost 30 years now. So, and every one of those years have been working on bison and brucellosis. So that's about it for me. We have another staff member on today, Becky Fry, who is wildlife disease specialist, whose one of primary responsibilities is to run the bison quarantine facility. So Becky's on the call also today. And that's about it for me.
Great, thanks, Ryan. We'll move to the CSKT, Bing.
Yeah, neat. There you go.
Good morning, everybody. As far as the SKT is going, we're still in the COVID restrictions too, following the guidelines, although the counties opened up most of, they're off with their guidelines like the state, but our tribe is still they're still following the guidelines here. So we wear masks, we've got hand washing and also social distancing yet with the people here. So we haven't lifted anything here yet. So we're giving a lot of shots. Tribal Health is going to start giving shots to everybody here I think next weekend and the following weekend on Saturdays. They're going to be giving shots to everybody here, not just the tribal members, but everybody. So everybody's got a chance to get shots if they want them. Tribe is still, we're still Zooming all of our meetings yet. Council is, and probably doing that probably for a while yet, maybe up till July, maybe. I'm not too sure what our chairman's plans are, but I think about July because she thinks everybody might be vaccinated by that time. But you know how everybody want to get a shot, but hopefully we have everybody, that's going to get vaccinated by then. So it's been a battle. I guess last year's been a battle, for us, and we've had a few of our tribal members here pass away from COVID, and it's been hard. It's been tough to deal with this virus, so it's not just for tribal members, but everybody, you know, with all the deaths that's gone on here in Montana, it's something, you know, to lose that many people to a disease like that, you know, and it's over you know, 500,000 people that we lost in the United States here, you know, it's a big loss, you know, to everybody. And dealing with these losses, you know, with the tribal members here is, you know, it takes a lot of, a lot of prayers, a lot of faith to deal with these losses, you know, with our people anyway. And so it's been tough, you know, it's been tough on everybody here. So, you know, just getting back with IBMP here and not being able to get any Bison in yet, you know, with the members, they're all asking about it. And people are finding out that we're kind of letting them know that possibly we're not going to get any. So, but anyway, we've been questioned about it. So Tom will probably elaborate more on it when he's turn to speak. So, but anyway, I want to thank you all for being here, you know, and joining this meeting again. And, you know, at the 6 years that this my 6th year I've been involved with IBMP. So it's, I'm not like the other fellow with 15 years, but, you know, it's good. And I really I enjoy it, you know, being out here and being with everybody. And again, I want to just welcome everybody and hopefully for a good meeting today. Thank you.
Thanks, Bing. And yes, we'll get, when we talk about winter ops, I'm sure Tom will come on. ITBC, I did see Arnell came on later. By the way, we have about 50 people on. Is it Arnell or Dan that's going to provide a greeting?
Good morning, it's Arnell.
Okay.
How is everybody this morning? I just wanted to say hello from my Intertribal Buffalo Council. Irvin unfortunately was unable to join us today. So we have Megan and Dan online with us as well. And looking to the future for things improving for everybody and maybe having normal meetings once again. We have thoughts and prayers for those who may have lost people throughout all this COVID pandemic situation, and looking at how our tribes are managing to get through this. It's just one day at a time, and lots of prayers, and we look forward to people getting vaccinated and hopefully a healthy world. Thank you.
Super, thanks, Arnell. Then Department of Livestock and Board of Livestock, should we start with Marty and then Mike? I see Marty, I don't see Mike, but I think he's on.
Yep, I think Mike's on as well. Yeah, welcome everybody. This is Marty Zalewski, State Veterinarian for the state of Montana with the Department of Livestock. I would just want to wish everybody a healthy, hopefully 11th hour as we move into a vaccinated population. So April 1st is a special day for the state of Montana as far as I'm concerned, because all groups are eligible for vaccine. And as it relates to the posture of the Department of Livestock, I think I will probably just defer to Mike as far as the COVID and other matters.
Super, Mike.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Good to be here. I think, you know, Marty covered that well on vaccine. We're still, you know, obviously you got to wait for higher vaccination numbers before you'll see state offices sort of return to normal. So we're still on our same posture that we've been in here and trying to limit contact. One of the interesting things is that now that we've been in this a year, I think we're probably going to see a lot of changes in our remote work policy. So actually one of the things that's interesting is we'll get to a point where people can come back. I'm not sure everybody will come back. I think some people may continue to work in the fashion that they are because we're finding some success with that since we've been forced to do it for a year. Obviously here we're dealing a lot with the legislature still in town, dealing with all that. So that's got our focus and attention primarily right now. And I know we've got some talk of that later on the agenda, but those are the big things happening for us. As well as I'd point out for the Board of Livestock, we had a big changeover. We had 4 new appointed and confirmed members to our Board of Livestock. So that's 4 out of 7. And so we've got a lot of new leadership on our Board of Livestock, but there are people who've been very active with our agency for a long time. So I don't imagine much will change on that front. So that's where we are at Department of Livestock and Board of Livestock.
Great, thank you, Mike. Park Service, Cam?
Hey, good morning, everyone. Look forward to a great conversation today. I like the agenda. I think there's some really good things for us to talk about. It's been another interesting year from a bison migration standpoint. So we're looking forward to some substantive conversations. Marina, welcome to the group. We worked closely with Mark. We look forward to doing the same with you. As far as COVID goes, I think as most people know, Yellowstone, we had a very busy year last year. We had near record visitation in August, and we had record visitation in September and October. I expect that my prediction anyway is we will probably have one of the busiest years on record in 2021. We've been fortunate to have great partners in the state of Wyoming and Montana in relationship to testing and vaccinations. We've got a goal of having every permanent employee vaccinated by the end of this week. I think we're sitting at about 550 people already vaccinated within Yellowstone National Park. And then we've got a large number of vaccinations coming to vaccinate likely every seasonal employee that comes into the park starting in April and May. So that's a good thing as far as the workforce goes. And I think we've got Tim and PJ and Chris. I think I saw Kevin Dooley and Brian's probably on there from the park and maybe some others, but look forward to a good meeting. Thanks, Scott.
Great, thanks, Cam. And by the way, I miscounted. I didn't see the 3rd page. We have 72 people on. Next up is the Nez Perce tribe. Quincy, you gave a little hello, but if you'd like to provide anything further or anybody on the team there, you guys are the lead today, so let me know.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, and welcome again, everybody. We've as far as our COVID protocols, I've stated we're moving to stage 4 with the Idaho rebound guidelines, and we've had 2 mass vaccinations for tribe members at our Clearwater River Casino and Event Center. That was organized by Rachel Edward, the Secretary of NEPTIC, Dr. Kim Hartwig, and Roberta Bisbee of Neiman Health. They did an excellent job. We had CDC come in and do a lot of addressing of our buildings, and it made some good suggestions. Our staff has just been doing an amazing job. Like the other tribes, it's been unfortunate. We've lost quite a bit of tribal members. A lot of them were older, a lot of history, a lot of language that left with them. You can't replace that. And so we're going to be pushing hard with this new American Rescue Plan and trying to obtain as much funding as we can to in every part of that the tribe can with language, with the clinic, with administration. We're going to be doing the best that we can. And I believe that we're going to hopefully be having another vaccination here soon. And I believe it's 18 and up now. We haven't yet opened it up for youth yet. So, but we are doing the best that we can, sticking together. We're all in this together, and we hope that we come out stronger than when we went into this, and we really hope that we can meet maybe in August. I'll open it up to the staff or Chairman Holt of the Fish and Wildlife Commission.
Consequently, everybody, it's Eric Holt with the Fish and Wildlife Commission. I just like to say, echo the words of Mr. Ellenwood. We've lost a lot of people to the COVID, and I'm a survivor of it as well. And it's tough to, as he stated, we lost a lot of language, history, and need to take the precaution and mitigation measures serious, and so we can get back to normalization, if you want to call it that. But I appreciate the time to speak with everybody today, and I hope everybody stays safe in this upcoming weeks and we get through this together. So Cutsy, I have thanks for the time.
That's it for us, Scott. Mike and Neil, they're being shy, I guess.
We'll wait till necessary.
Fair enough. We'll move on to the Forest Service. Kathy, please.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here today. My name's Kathy Miner, and I am the acting forest supervisor for Mary. She took a detail to the Washington office, although it's virtual. She'll be back at the next meeting. As far as COVID, there's not a whole bunch of changes in how we operate. We have the federal executive order, the mask mandate, to wear masks on federal properties and in vehicles and where you can't socially distance outside. And then we also have people that are helping with the vaccination process. And as we all know, Montana is now available for everybody to get vaccinated. So we're really happy about that. And real quickly, I wanted to introduce the acting deputy forest supervisor, Scott Schuster, if he could turn on his video and say hi.
Hey, good morning. As Kathy said, I'm Scott Schuster. I'll be the acting deputy forest supervisor while Mary's in DC, or virtually in DC. Normally, I'm the wildland fire and hazardous fuel staff officer for the forest, so a interesting and good change of pace for me.
Right, and also today here from the Forest Service, we have Mike Thome, the district ranger at Gardner. And that's all the updates we have. Scott, thanks.
Thanks, Kathy, and welcome, Scott. And I know Mike has a little bit of an update coming up later on, so we'll see you, Mike, as well. Let's see, the Umatilla tribe, Jeremy or Carl? I'm not sure if Jeremy got on yet or not, Carl.
Yeah, good morning. I'm here.
Oh, good. Hey, Jeremy.
Sorry I was a little bit late, phone call. But my name is Jeremy Wolf, Vice Chair of the Umatilla Tribe. Yeah, I believe I'll let Carl and Joe introduce themselves. But as far as COVID goes, you know, we've had some rough times, obviously, with everybody else, but we're also been able to keep the numbers down quite a bit within our tribe. Took a pretty good initiative on closing things down pretty early, but we have most of the tribal members vaccinated at this time, and we're vaccinating their families and our employees, and we're gradually moving back into the office. We've been back, those who haven't been vaccinated, have been back in the office for a month or so, but we're still, you know, keeping our distance and keeping our masks on and things like that. But we did have one death from a tribal member, but the county that we're in, Umatilla County, has been struggling as far as one of the state counties is. But so now that we've been able to get the tribe taken care of and our employees and our their families, I think we're moving forward with having mass vaccinations up here at our casino, and getting a lot of the county residents and local city residents, and so we can hopefully we're seeing a downturn in that, so that's a positive thing. Also, we've been able to vaccinate kids 16 and older, but looking forward to some of the news I've been reading earlier in the week about some of the trials on our youth getting vaccinated have gone well. But whenever that comes forward, we've been getting supplied extra vaccinations through IHS and taking advantage of those and getting mass distributions when we have those available. That's all.
Thanks. I think in the interest, we'll just keep pushing forward of time. Is Leander on? Okay, for the Shoshone-Bannock? I guess not. I think, did I see Brendan or possibly Laurel on for the Yakima? There's Brendan. I thought I saw him.
Good morning, Scott. Yeah, this is Brendan Keenan, staff attorney for Yakima Nation. I do see that we have Councilman George Meninick on the line. So I would offer the floor to him if he has any remarks that he wants to say.
You bet, George. He may not be getting on, Brendan. You want to just provide a greeting?
Sure. So first, I'd just like to thank all the tribal leaders and employees, as well as federal and state representatives for participating today. I'd also like to thank you, Scott, for organizing the meeting. Really appreciate that. So just very briefly, the Yakima Nation still has the majority of our COVID safety measures in place, including a limited work schedule and travel restrictions for meetings. We've been distributing vaccines for a few months. I have not really been involved with that process, but I believe that it is going well and it is getting out to the people. Like the gentleman from CSKT said, it's been a battle over the last year, but I think that we're hopeful for brighter days on the horizon. So that's really all that I have to say, but look forward to the meeting today and look forward to the time when we're all able to meet in person again. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Brendan. From the Blackfeet, Buzz.
Good morning. As far as COVID goes, probably heard last year the Blackfeet closed the east entrances to Glacier National Park to protect our people. And just recently on the 22nd of March, we worked with Glacier National Park to open up the east entrances this year. That's due in large part to about 90% of our population has received 2 doses of vaccine at this point. And so the reservation is now at 50% indoor capacity for restaurants, bars, and casinos under phase 3. And the goal is to eventually reach 100% occupancy in a few weeks if everything continues to go well. So, but you know, we're still encouraging people to wear masks and do everything possible to kind of keep things under control. That's it for us.
Great, thanks, Buzz. Let's see, did we get everyone? Oh, Clorinda. Is Clorinda Thunder on for Northern Arapaho? Okay. So good, we're looking at a few minutes ahead, so that'll be helpful in the winter ops discussion. A couple of things from the previous meeting. The meeting report has been posted on the website and was sent out from a couple weeks after the previous meeting. Give a chance, and I'll just pause for a second if there's any dissenters from making that final. I will point out again on these Zoom calls, we have posted the entire meeting, so there will be no question about what was said because the meeting is recorded. So I'll just pause for a second in case anyone has dissent. Okay, going 3 times. I'm assuming you had a chance to get off the mute button. So that will just be marked as final and posted on the IBMP website, again, right alongside the 3-hour version of the meeting. The other thing I was intended to do was just give a quick update. The other 3 action items, the third one is talking about the carcass handling in the northern range, and that's going to be Shana, Nathan, Mike, and Mike in just a second. But 2 other action items from the December meeting were to complete the winter ops plan and get it signed. And just I want to state appreciation to everyone who provided input to that, who helped me along just to get it out, and for Neil and company for reviewing it, Quincy and the tribe. Then same way with the annual report, thanks for all the submissions, and that was completed and posted. So those were the 2 big items from December. A third item that came from December was a discussion that was going to happen at that time, I believe, and I'll turn it over to Shana, Nathan, and Mike here in just a moment. to get together and talk about and further consider the idea, including funding, who would be in charge and so forth of a carcass handling facility on the north side. And I think I'll just step aside at that point. And so I think we have Mike, Shana, and Nathan. Probably makes sense, Mike, for you to start, but why don't I let you guys handle it, and the three of you guys come off and mute, and you can decide how you want to handle it. I see Nathan's there, and I will step off.
Hey, Scott, Mike here. Before we get started on that agenda item, it occurred to me that we should make one more introduction. We've got, several FWP folks that many of you are familiar with from previous meetings. One new one that I want to introduce is Quinn Kuka. Maybe Quinn, you can flash on if you can, but late last year, we made the decision within FWP to create a position that is diversity. I think the full title is Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator for the entire department. A huge part of the duties of that person, which is Quinn, is just being a tribal liaison. And so Quinn has grown up in the department within enforcement. Most recently, she was a warden sergeant in the Great Falls area. And she's got lots of good experience working with tribes, and we decided to capitalize on that to really put some meaningful attention toward the department's relationship with tribes. And of course, that intersects quite often with IBMP. And so say hi, Quinn, whatever you want to do, whatever you're comfortable with, but she'll be a face that you'll see.
Thank you, Mike. Yep, my name is Quinn Kuka, spelled funny, but it's pronounced pretty easy. So that's not misspelled. That's the way it is. But nice to meet you all, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Quinn's been making the rounds to different tribes and all around Montana to our different offices as well. Not much grass grows under her feet, you'll find out.
Welcome, Quinn, and I appreciate, as I'm sure all of you do, when you talk to somebody on email and then actually get to see them, even if it's on a screen. It's nice to have the face with the name. Before we jump into Mike, Nathan, and Shana, is there anybody else that is absolutely brand new that we need to introduce? Okay, well, I'll turn it over to Mike, Shana, and Nathan, please. And you guys will shoot for about 15 minutes here, if we can do that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. No, just to kick it off and then kind of turn it over to Nathan and Shana a bit. We had started our meetings back in December, kind of this carcass management subcommittee. Had some meetings early December there, started looking at options, and then kind of working with the community with GYC and Bear Creek Council on that. Bear Creek Council started digging into some options, and I will kind of just use that to transition over to Nathan and Shana a little bit, and then we'll tag team it from there.
Hello. Nathan Barley, Bear Creek Council. I think, we kind of did a good job for years defining there's some issues and problems with the accumulation of carcasses in small areas around the border of the park and community areas. We've transitioned to trying to figure out what the solutions might be to those problems. And there we have run into quite a diversity of ideas. And I just kind of summarize with my time that after really gauging the community and a lot of conversations about what the right thing is, we don't have a consensus. There's a lot of interesting ideas that may need to be tried, but I'd say that there about a third of the people I talk to just think the carcasses should be left out there. That's a good place for them. A third would like to see them cleaned up, but they don't want communities to do it, and it might be hard to ask hunters to do it. And then lastly, you know, something where that does involve more community help. Some people want to help clean up those sites and use this the possible carcass trailer as an idea. So, so those conversations continue. You know, we don't again have clear consensus, and I wish we did. But I'll just maybe conclude my piece with saying that, you know, we talked to the folks at the Buffalo Bridge project there who stayed for 3 or 4 weeks or something like that from February into early March and helped hunters process their animals. And the Forest Service had them as part of their permit to camp on Forest Service land, help clean up. And I talked to them about that, and it seemed like they were doing some good things with that. They were removing a lot of the portions that were like edible and usable, and with other pieces, they got rid of them, which I would say is probably, they didn't end up in a landfill. I think they just kind of hid them on the landscape, which seems like kind of a fun little common sense solution to some of this. So we like their work, and I just thought I'd mention that as one of the bright spots in all this. And I'll turn it over to Shayna.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, so when we met in December after the last IBMP meeting, as a committee, we kind of just came to the conclusion that, you know, there wasn't a clear agency or entity that was kind of willing and able at this point to take over ownership of a dumpster. And so, you know, we still stand, you know, ready and willing to purchase a dumpster, and we have somebody in Cody that gave us some designs and can do that for us. But until we have somebody that can commit to taking over ownership, I think we're kind of just at a standstill at this point, because we do need somebody that can, you know, insure and provide maintenance to a dumpster and do the hauling and dumping. And we just can't do that as an NGO based in Bozeman. I think it just doesn't make sense for us. And so that's basically where we're at right now. But we're still here and willing to buy one if anyone wants to step forward and take that on.
Let me point out for everybody that Nathan and Shayna are the only 2 people who are not partners or staff that are on, in part for this project, starting with Bear Creek Council leading a field trip to the park, and it shows interaction with the public through an actual program. Questions for the 2 of them on where they're at. Shane, I'm sure you just mentioned the dollars, that there are at least some people who don't know about the dollars that are available and stuff. And then after that, the floor is open for anyone to provide any questions. We want to keep this idea alive since it was brought to the partners and the partners said, yes, look into it. So your opportunity for questions.
Yep, I'll just jump in again, Scott. Kind of 2 pieces. I think it's obviously worthwhile to keep the conversation going if our subcommittee gets back together once again and just kind of rehashes this. Love to hear more. Nathan's conversations with the community, kind of what came out of that. What are the concerns or pros and cons, or are there different things we can try address there? But then also expanding, as Nathan brought up, we tried something, stepped out a little bit with the Buffalo Bridge group, authorized them to camp at a day use site where camping is typically not allowed. And they were there for roughly 4 weeks when typically our camping limit is 16 days. But working with them, it asked them, hey, help out. We know you're on the landscape helping hunters. Like Nathan said, process animals, help clean up. They helped kind of with food storage compliance as well. Following March 1st, Buffalo Bridge helped haul carcasses away for hunters to aid in that. There's pros and cons in this, just so everybody's aware. We've got Buffalo Bridge is going to do a little kind of recap summary for myself of just, hey, here's how many people we had, here's how many carcasses we helped clean up or haul or different aspects there. And then we can review that this summer to see, hey, did this work? Was it worth it to authorize their extended stay on National Forest? And looking at impacts, not just on the bison aspect of it, but allowing them to camp at a day use site, that brings in other expectations there as well. So I think that'd be another conversation just to keep going in this subcommittee with all the different facets of how we help or, yeah, help to improve this situation.
Other questions for Nathan, Shana, or Mike? Shana, would you just go over the money that you guys have available, just so people understand that that's, I think, not the thing that's holding anybody back, right?
Right, yeah, so we sort of scrambled last fall, and I think we've sort of put together enough money to purchase the entire dumpster setup outright. So that would be anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000, depending on the size of the dumpster that we would get. But we pretty much have that covered at this point. Again, we just need someone who will take it on, who will take the next step. So.
Any other questions for these guys? Please, Tom, and please just chime in if you take yourself off of the mic and let us know. Tom, please.
Yeah, just a question for Mike. In relation to working with the Buffalo Bridge folks, did you ask them that there could be the potential for the availability of this trailer, and how that might factor in even more improvement for the food storage order requirement?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. No, we did not get into conversations on the kind of trailer dumpster here with them. Would have no problem discussing it with them. They're very open and willing to see where they can help, where they can aid in the situation. So yeah, I can definitely ponder options with them as well.
Mike, I have a quick question for you, actually. This winter, did you guys, I know there's some talk about trying to do just some additional sort of outreach and talking with hunters before the hunt and then while they're out on the landscape, along with, I guess, this group, Buffalo Bridge, talking and working with them. Do you feel like there was some compliance and willingness for folks to, disperse gut piles and kind of clean up, some of the remains? Was that successful in any way?
Shane, I'd say, I don't think from the Forest Service aspect specifically, we put that emphasis in there. What I did see though, is from the tribes and the tribal hunters on the ground, that were dispersing the ruminants, that when I was up there kind of while Buffalo Bridge was here and walked around at Beatty Gulch, is like, wow, this looks very reasonable, looks very good and clean. Granted, Buffalo Bridge moved out, March 15th, March 16th or something, and the majority of our hunting has occurred in the last 2 weeks. So that landscape looks a little different right now. If we could extend that, I think there'd be some benefits. But I guess from my aspect, really seeing the tribes and their wardens putting the effort into that to dispersing it paid dividends as well. But there's always more work to do for sure.
Any other questions for these three? And if not, Quincy, maybe we should go ahead and move on. Questions for Nathan, Shana, or Mike with respect to this topic? Okay, short that. Quincy, I think we'll move on and we'll be a little bit ahead, which is really nice. And thank you all for for that. Mike, note that I put an action item for you to report on that, the report that you said you would get from them, from Buffalo Bridge folks for next time, okay? The next part of the agenda is a review of winter operations to date, and essentially this is the core of the day-to-day, starting with improving safety and quality of the north side hunt. Some will bridge into what Mike was just talking about, Mike and Jana and Nathan. And what we thought is we would do is start first by just going through harvest summaries and then going on a bit more to field operations. So how about if we just do the harvest summaries and then we'll come back to each group, starting with FWP. I know that previously FWP had been sort of tabulating everyone's, and maybe we start there.
Thanks, Scott. You just want a summary of the state harvest and then allow each tribe to provide their own harvest summaries, or do you want a harvest or a summary of everything?
If you want to do what you know, I know if it's still the same, you guys have been collecting them, and then the tribes will know what FWP has, and they can let you know if that's correct or not.
That sounds good, Scott. So we had our conference call yesterday, our weekly Bison coordination call, and each hunt agency has done a great job of providing weekly updates on their harvest. So right now, I'm just going to go off of the totals for the north side and the west side that I have. And if there's any corrections that need to be made, certainly happy to do that. So for the north side, in the Gardner Basin, starting with state harvest, we saw 6 bison harvested by state hunters. CSKT had 0, Nez Perce had 76, Shoshone-Bannock tribes had 6 bison, Umatilla had 20, Yakima Nation had 7, Blackfeet had 15, for a total of 130 bison on the north side. Now on the west side, West Yellowstone, state hunters harvested 10 bison, CSKT harvested 6, Nez Perce 1, Shoshone-Bannock tribe 0, Umatilla 0, Yakima Nation 17, Blackfeet Nation 5, and Northern Arapaho 0. So the total for the west side would be 39. And right now, I have 2 bison that were reported to be wounded and agency dispatched. There were no bison that were trapped this season. So the total bison harvest in all was 169. That's what I got.
Super. How about if we step through now all the other entities and first of all, verify the numbers, and then if you want to make any comments about how you found the hunt this year, specific to the hunt and the harvest, and we'll go to field operations, safety, enforcement, et cetera, after that. So let's start with CSKT.
Yes, that's correct. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome our new Mark Decker replacement, Mark Delray replacement. Rena, good to have you. Hope you have a great and successful time in that region. That's a large and complex region, and I'm sure you're up to the task. So if we can help you in any way, we would certainly like to do that. So just let us know. The report for the hunt is accurate. Sales Scrutiny has no more to provide to that number. We did our hunt orientations differently this year, but we still had a good number of hunters apply to to do the hunt. We did not extend our hunt in any way because of the time that normal period, we might extend it. There wasn't any forecast of migration. So our extension of a hunt wouldn't have done any good at that point in time. I think if this continues to be the new norm, we will certainly revisit our hunt season and try to figure that out in a better fashion if indeed we're going to move to hunting as the only tool. We will indeed react to that, and we'll bring our 600 to 800 hunters on the landscape through extended season. So that'll be a change in the landscape, which I would recommend. In the discussion point in the hunt managers, the hunt coordination call yesterday, eloquently put by Chris Jeremiah, that all hunt agencies need to gather up, and we need to have a more concerted and thoughtful and agreed upon strategy to hunt on the landscape, particularly for the Gardner Basin. So I look forward to those meetings this spring that are coming up, or summer, and trying to move that forward. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Tom. On to the Nez Perce tribe, focusing on harvest and how it went this year, starting with the numbers. I'm not sure if that's Eric or Quincy or Adam or who. Sorry, Neil.
Hey, Scott, this is Neil. Yeah, Neil Thagard, Wildlife Director for the Nez Perce tribe. Our numbers that we have, and I've got to validate the one that is recorded on the west side. Yes, the 76 total on the north side is accurate. And that consisted of 23 bulls, 22 cows, 9 cow calves, 10 bull calves, and then we're still waiting for some reports to come in. We've got 12 that we do not have sex and age on at this time. You know, I think I'll leave some of the other discussion on how the hunt went to some of our folks that have, you know, Quincy and Eric, who is here, who participated in the hunt. But you know, certainly appreciated the cooperation with the park and in the, as Tom said, attempting to make hunting the sole management tool or primary management tool. What we did see, I just want to throw it out there, is that you know, we didn't send any hunters. I'll commend our commission for informing our hunters when activity was occurring over there. So we didn't send folks over on the landscape, not very many anyway, until January 13th. And most of those hunt parties consisted of 1 to 5 hunters up until the week of February 21st. And that's when our harvest activity really began to pick up. I don't think on the north side, I don't think we had a harvest until that week of February 21st, just because of the movement of the bison. So at this point, that's all I have, Scott.
Great, thanks, Neil. I think we don't have Leander. Carl or Jeremy for the Umatilla?
Yeah, we can concur with the numbers, total numbers that were reported by the state. We were heavy to the bull component because of the late harvest, and the harvest over the past years has gotten later and later, and that's been a challenge for all the tribes, I think. But this was one of our smaller harvests, primarily because of that, and it was about 80% males, 10 bulls, 6 bull calves. We had only 1 cow taken and 3 cow calves. And again, that's a reflection of the fact that we shut down the cow hunting in March to protect the unborn.
Whoops, thanks, Carl. Let's see, who's next? Yakima Nation, and Brendan, I think are you handling those numbers, or any thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So I wish that Laurel was on the line today. She had an appointment and wasn't able to make it because she would be better equipped to confirm the numbers. The number of harvests that I have is slightly different than what FWP reported. So I can follow up with Laurel and then follow up with FWP in the group as needed. But I do believe that we had a fairly successful season this year. I'd also note that we made some changes to our hunt protocols, mostly as a result of the challenges and obstacles that COVID posed. So we did all of our orientations online this year. That went pretty well, but I think that we also learned some lessons that we'll be implementing next year. We also ended up starting our season later than normal, and then extending it later than we usually do. So we opened on January 4th and closed last Saturday, March 27th. In addition to the change in dates, we also modified our permit distribution system for West Yellowstone slightly. So as I understand it, essentially what we did is we did a lottery for permits, and then people were placed in a queue. And so the first people whose permits were drawn were placed at the top of the queue. And our wildlife program would notify those people when there were actually bison in and around West Yellowstone. And the permit holder would have to respond, I think, within 24 hours with their intent, whether they were going to exercise their permit. The idea for this was basically to prevent people from traveling all the way to Montana when there weren't actually bison present, and just reduce the amount of travel that people were going to have to do and the sort of amount of saturation of people in the area. And again, that was prompted by COVID safety concerns. So I think that that went well. I didn't hear of any problems. And yeah, I think that, like the online orientations, it's something that we'll be considering implementing next year, regardless of whether we have these overarching health concerns. Because, if it was effective and people were happy with it, then it's something that we'll continue or consider to continue retaining. That is all that I have to report. Like I said, I'll follow up with Laurel, and if there's any other information to share with the partners or with any other parties, then I can follow up and do that. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Brendan. For the Blackfeet Buzz, harvest numbers and how the hunt went.
Hi, so those numbers are pretty close, but since our season went until March 31st, I'd like to circle back and give you more accurate figures. But I think for the West Yellowstone area, that 5 number is probably pretty good, but might want to get back to you on the others. But overall, I think our hunters were satisfied with their hunts down there, but like everybody else was disappointed in the migration. I think maybe when we get into the meeting to talk about specifics, we have some recommendations that might be able to help the situation. I think the
Is that the Blackfeet guy speaking?
I'm sorry, did someone have a question? Okay. But other than that, I think because of COVID, we probably didn't get involved in hunting down there as early as we would have liked. So this year we'll probably start our season a little earlier, but again, that's kind of on the drawing board. That's it for Blackfeet.
Great, thanks, Buzz. I believe that Clarinda is not here, right, for the Northern Arapaho? Okay, the next segment is on field operations to date. And rather than step through person by person, I'm going to suggest that we just start out with 2 people, and then if there are other people that want to add. Steph was going to lead this because she helped write the communications protocol in the winter ops plan this year, or modified. And Tom, Steph said, Tom's your man. He will be able to provide some input. And if that's not the case, sorry, I didn't tell you this in advance. For the Nez Perce tribe, Adam, you provided some thoughts just when we had our practice run through last week. If you could maybe just kick off how communications went with the field crew between you and Tom, if we could start there, and then just rather than step through person by or group by group, just let anyone else provide input they want to. So either Tom or Adam, can you start off the discussion on field operations to date, and let's everything except for status of hunt trap coordination, and we'll handle that with another item. Adam?
Yeah, Scott, this is Tom. You know, during our hunt season, while it was going, communications were good. Dan's here. He said the law enforcement communication went really well. For BD Gulch, for that management, it looked like the coordination was going well for the MOU tribes. So we didn't extend the hunt, so we don't have any communication on that other than participating in the weekly calls. We appreciate that Fish, Wildlife, and Parks coordinated and kept the weekly law enforcement hunt coordination calls going. I think that's a very useful tool. And so appreciations and kudos out to Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Company that performed that task. That's about all I have. Thanks.
Super. Adam, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, Scott, this is Quincy. We just had Chief Bill Vicencio walk in. If you can give him a few minutes, we can move on to somebody else and give her a small little update, let him get his materials out. Thank you.
Okay, and Adam, also of FWP, do you want to provide any input on how things have went this year for communications wise and just coordination and all those kind of things? Nice kudos from Tom just now.
We appreciated Tom. Morgan Jacobson ran those calls and did it very well. I think the communication weekly was very good. We didn't have attendance every week by every member, but I think throughout the season, most members got in on a few of those conference calls, and it really helped with us knowing how many hunters were expected on the landscape, being able to address immediate safety concerns or enforcement concerns immediately, or at least on a weekly basis. The feedback I got from my staff is that field communications between the federal partners, state partners, and tribal partners was very good on the ground. And any safety issues that were observed were able to be addressed immediately to the best of their ability. The only major or consistent issue we were having at FWP was related to our Gardner hunting closure. And all these circumstances were not bison hunts, but were other species related to the treaty hunts down there, mostly elk. We talked about it on the conference call. This closure has been around for decades. It's on page 6 of our bison regulations. It's also listed in our deer, elk, and antelope regulations. It's also digitized on all of FWP's maps. It is a safety closure issued by our Wildlife Commission that applies to all hunting. It's basically the area northwest of Gardner between the highway and the Jardine Road above to prevent people from shooting from above down towards the park or the city below. And we did have a handful of issues with elk hunts occurring in that closed area. It's very well signed. There's carcinite posts and all sorts of notification along that road that the closure exists, but that's the only consistent issue we had this year. Otherwise, everything else we think went really well, so, unless I'm unaware of issues out there.
Super, thanks, Adam. Now, rather than step through anybody, all the different groups, is there anyone else regarding field operations to date, enforcement, and so on? Please, Quincy.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn it over to Chief Adam Bell Vicencio to give you a little summary from enforcement.
Hey, Scott. Just to let all you folks know, overall communication in the field was real well. Our folks worked well with our federal partners, state and tribal. As is always the case, there are certain small issues that arise. But those situations all were remedied, worked through, and anything requiring appropriate action was taken by the jurisdiction responsible for enforcement. So along those lines, I don't have anything detrimental to report. I'll be honest, I'm glad that the season is ended. Same with our field folks; they're pretty tired, but it's worthwhile.
Yeah, Scott, this is Quincy. I just I got on the weekly calls a few different times. I appreciate those calls being organized, all the data. I think that the communication amongst the sovereigns and the police officers, the Forest Service, I think it all went very, very well. I think there's, particularly in the north and North Yellowstone, there's going to definitely need to be some changes amongst the hunt parties, some better collaboration. There's always there's always room for improvement, and I think that'll definitely get done, and so that everybody's most importantly safe out in the field and able to get something to take home to their families. But all in all, I think some of the communication went very well, and also with the appreciate the Park Service notifying the tribes right away of an incidental trapping. I thought that was good of them to let us know right away. And the communication is dramatically improved. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Quincy. Anyone else on this topic, largely about communications and operations in the field? I'll just pause for a second.
This is Brad Wilkie with the Forest Service Law Enforcement.
Thanks, Brad.
I just had a couple topics to bring up specifically for the Gardner area. We had a couple incidents where multiple bison were shot in the Beatty Gulch non-shooting area, closure area, which is referred to the clean zone. On each of those, law enforcement action was taken. We also had a few safety issues regarding firearm use reported by both hunters and bystanders and people that witnessed that. One somewhat significant incident with it that's being looked into currently. As far as food storage goes, after March 1st, we had a few incidents where gut piles and animal parts were left too close to roads and trails and that kind of stuff. But in general, from my perspective, I think we had better compliance this year than in previous years. And then the last thing I'll mention is the really good coordination amongst the MOA tribes from a law enforcement perspective. It makes a difference, and it helps to reduce, law enforcement response and actions and incidents, stuff like that. So that's much appreciated. And that's all I have.
Super, thanks, Brad. Please, was that Carl?
Yeah. I just want again to thank the Forest Service for the effort they've done to improve the safety out there in Beatty. The marking was helpful. The improvements that were done in the posting. We did have some challenges with with hunters that were facing the safety zone on the road from the parking area and not realizing that they were back in that parking area because of the way that's been marked. So Mike, we want to work with you to maybe add a few more posts in there. And we're working with our hunters to make sure they pay a little bit closer attention over their shoulders. But again, thank you for your efforts there. Much appreciated.
Mike, Tom, can you, we have a further down on this list, the status of the safety zone markers, and that's been mentioned twice. Can we just hit that right now?
Yeah, really quick though, our folks got out, I think it was December, with Brad Bolte and Park Ranger, I think Brian Helms, reposted those, kind of ensured alignment a little bit better, added a couple more posts and some holes that may have been in there, and then just repainted the tops on those. So yeah, that was done, much more visible out there. Yeah, appreciate any of your feedback there, Carl, as well. I think as folks know, the biggest challenge, well, maybe I'll say, yeah, biggest challenge on those shooting closures is it's right around that 150 yards until you get to the trailhead. Then we've got that bubble around it. So to keep, just like you said, Carl, keep educating our folks. We'll see where we can help in that as well. But to keep educating, it's not just a straight 150 off the road. When you get to that trailhead, there's that bubble there. So appreciate that feedback, but yeah.
Yeah, Scott.
Please, Quincy.
Yeah, this is Quincy. I'm glad that Brad brought up the importance of the MOA, and I want to turn it over to Mike Lopez of OLC to explain the MOA and the members.
Thanks, Quincy. This is Mike Lopez for the Nez Perce Tribe. Forest Service law enforcement made a reference to MOA tribes, and for new officials on the phone or folks listening who are unfamiliar with the MOA refers to a memorandum of agreement that was executed some years ago between the Nez Perce Tribe, the Yakima Nation, the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, and the Umatilla tribe. The purpose of the MOA is to facilitate and reinforce safety and coordination between those tribes in the Beatty Gulch area, to ensure and maximize safety of the treaty tribal hunt in Beatty Gulch. And so that MOA has been in place for several years now. And all some of the sort of general provisions of the MOA is that each sovereign, participating tribal sovereign, has voluntarily agreed to limit the number of tribal hunters in Beatty Gulch. It also provides for coordination on law enforcement, coordination on safety. And from our perspective, the MOA has been a real success, and we appreciate acknowledgement from the Forest Service law enforcement about that. We've worked hard to ensure that the MOA does what our leadership intends for it to do, which is to maximize safety, to improve success for tribal hunters, and to continue to provide for a safe hunt in that area. So appreciate that, and thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you. Thanks, Quincy. Thanks, Mike. And for people who, if anyone has their agenda printed out, on the north side now, we've hit communications, harvest summaries, the bison carcass handling actually were handled previously, the safety zone markers, and just to start there on the MOA in case other folks have any comments on that. But with those items out, they can be brought up again if someone wants to, but let's move on for the hunt trap coordination. Sounds like there are things to be discussed there with respect to maybe that there wasn't a lot. I don't know about that, but also the hunt removals versus population goals, how that's impacted. And for the moment, we start with Jeremy and Chris as the two people on that item. Jeremy or Chris, maybe Cam, maybe it's going to be you with respect to the, oh, there is Jeremy.
Go ahead, Chris. Go, you can lead us off there.
I apologize.
Yeah, hi, Jeremy. Did you want to start, Jeremy, because of the of hunting and such, or would you like me to start talking about trapping?
Well, from what I understand, our Carl, you could help me out on this, but there wasn't a lot of trapping going on during the hunt. I know I can appreciate the coordination in this year and the amendments that we did make, specifically because we ended up having a situation where there weren't a lot of animals coming out. I went over there when it was really cold and apparently too cold for bison because they didn't move anywhere. But they, we didn't have any little issues as we've had in the past, but a lot of that had to do with them moving out. I know that I did get some reports from specific communications with you guys in our enforcement, and that is much appreciated, as we did have some animals coming out, but there weren't really enough to garner a trapping effort, is what I was reported to me, and that those animals were better suited for the hunt operation. But other than that, I think that is something that we've definitely appreciated, and worked hard to create some of those amendments and create some of those better understandings about that. That obviously that puts some pressure on, and this is interrelated with the MOA that we have and was described by Nez Perce, and we're very proud of completing. So we'll continue to work and hopefully garner some more communications with Northern Arapaho and Blackfeet, Chauvin, but by and large can concur with everybody else on the increased communications was beneficial, but there were some incidents that are being addressed through enforcement. So, but with that being said, I think that is something that we need to make sure that we review annually, and see where we can improve, and on both sides, and make sure that those communications not only continue but get better. That's all.
And I think we spent a lot of time watching what was happening in the basin, and how the bison migration was evolving this winter. And as everybody knows, it was evolving slowly. We didn't have animals moving down in any kind of number into the Gardner Basin really until into March. And we were meeting weekly, and discussing this with everybody on the hunt calls weekly, that we weren't seeing a lot of bison outside of the park. It wasn't we weren't seeing landowner conflicts or bison on the highway outside of the park. We weren't seeing a lot of bison inside the park. And it seemed like it was a number that was manageable through hunting. So we decided against trapping, trying to support, our trust responsibilities to the tribes, given that it seemed like everything was in balance. We also didn't have the opportunity to bring animals into the quarantine facility this year. So, weighing all of those things together, we wanted to lean, heavily on working with you all to see how hunting could be successful. I do think there is room for improvement. There is for everything with bison. I think we didn't see a ton of exploration. Well, I know we didn't see a ton of exploration outside of the park. Most groups were turned around, right at Beatty Gulch. So as this population gets a little bigger, which it will this year, we'll probably be around 5,200 animals in August, which is, very close to the 10-year average. But, as it gets bigger, I think we need to all come together here. The hunting MOA is a great step, and I applaud what you've done. But we do need to take that next step now to figure out, how do we get more animals further out into the tolerance area where bison are allowed? How do we continue to harvest animals, in a bigger space? Otherwise we're going to be into heavier trapping in the future as the animals learn that, it's a wall of guns. So I think, we made a lot of great progress this year. I think some of the best progress was in the coordination and the communication and the transparency. As you mentioned, we had one incident where A couple of, we were working some horses, training some horses in the Stevens Creek area. And in the process of that, a gate was left open and some bison walked into the facility, and we immediately, got those animals back out. And the first call was to all of the hunting tribes. So, we're making progress. I think we're trying to show trust. The next step now is figuring out, how do we hunt across more of this area? How do we make hunting a more meaningful tool, even when migrations are late, so that we don't have to walk backwards and trap incredibly intensely to control the population.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciated that, and the call that we received when that occurred, we hadn't even known about that. So applaud you for reaching out immediately to the hunting tribes on the ground and letting us know that. I think that we said the same thing. I think our enforcement said that on the call with you guys, but we said that to ourselves, is that was appreciated, just for working on that trust and that relationship. And so I think that's going to prove better for us moving forward. And then as far as the animals going back, I think some of that has to do with maybe some improvements we need in the MOA. We've described some of the hunts, and you say that the line of guns that have and could occur in the future. There are techniques for sure on how to get those animals moving in the right direction, even through a hunt as well. And some of that comes with experience, and some of it probably could be described in that MOA. It's specifically for Beatty Gulch, so that hunt is a situation that obviously puts a lot of us in a small area. And I think that's going to occur no matter what. I think the biggest fear is that, gets eliminated, and we move that issue. We move all of the concerns we have with Beatty Gulch downstream in an even more condensed area with rocks. So I think that's something that we need to make sure we're moving forward, like you said, and knowing that we're probably going to have more animals next year. There are some things that are more technical in how we hunt, and then of course the communications is going to be key. So I think we got a lot to talk about, not only with the trap operations and you and your team, but the MOA tribes, and hopefully pulling in the other tribes, Blackfeet and Arapaho, and I know that we've had communications on the ground to some success. So I think that those are good things to stand on and move forward with. So, thanks again.
And I guess one final comment is I wanted to thank all the tribes for the timely reporting of harvest. That was a great step forward this year. There were tribes that didn't report any timing last year. Thank you. That's very important information that helps us make daily decisions. As you could see this morning.
Thanks to you both. And that conversation breached into the distribution of the bison, which is the final north side topic. In past years, DOL, APHIS, Park Service, FWP, a whole bunch of people have been involved in talking about distribution. Is there anything else beside what Chris and Jeremy just talked about that folks want to bring up with respect to distribution? Either knowledge of numbers, animals, where they were, where they didn't go this year, or anything on that topic. We'll leave that open for a moment. And at the same time, if you have a question for Chris or Jeremy relative to what they just spoke about, please feel free. I see Adam P up on the top talking a lot, but the microphone is not on. Anyone on that topic? We'll move on. If not, that's fine. Okay. And I had a note from Tim, but Tim, I'm not going to call on you because I don't think we need to do that. I think we're ready. Oh, please.
Thanks, Scott. As far as the distribution goes, I was just curious if there was any discussion on West Yellowstone.
If it's all right, Jeremy, well, we can just flip to the west side discussion now. We'll just do that. We'll jump that one in front. We want to have a good deal of time for quarantine. So let's switch over to the west side. Hunt status, we already went through, habitat manipulation and distribution. Thoughts on that from anyone?
Well, I'll just continue. The Forest Service did a great job of monitoring, what's happening over at West this year. So thank you, Rob. Basically, the short was we had a small family group moving out onto Horse Butte pretty early in the winter. It was harvested partly by, harvested a little bit, and kind of moved back in and out of the park, spent most of the winter in the park. And now we're just starting to see the groups move for Horse Butte to their spring calving grounds. And
Hold on, I'm on a call, but let me.
I do think that, limiting hunting in that west side, granted, it's a double-edged sword we talk about all the time. When you look at the conservation, the demographics of the population, we're doing everything possible as a team here to let the animals in the central herd rebound and grow. And then there's a huge tolerance area to the north that these animals could explore into. We've seen a couple of bulls make some pioneer movements partway up 191. But at the same time, West also provides an opportunity to spread out hunters. We've continued to advocate, meaning the parks continue to advocate to really use your resolve in hunting on the west side and to limit it to males. And I think that, that's really the right thing to do to try and get bison into this big conservation area.
So the floor is open right now for any comments on the west side. Previously, the partners had engaged with and met at the Circle 9 Circle, Ranch, and met with neighbors there. And I personally put is there an opportunity for re-engagement with the west side? And honestly did not get feedback for the moment, but anything else with the west side, including the new hunting district, maybe for FWP, and the status of that with the west side.
Hey, this is Eric.
Please go ahead, Eric.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to, for the Nez Perce tribe, we got a recommendation from our wildlife, and when we held our orientations, I tried to explain the importance of being true stewards of the resource, and for our relatives that can't speak for themselves, and that west side, as we stated earlier, it's needs some rebounding to take place to get that herd to get where it needs to be back to sustainability. And I think it was in light of the mild winter conditions and the migration that didn't take place, and we tried to do our part by limiting the amount of hunters that went over there. I think it from our point of it, I'm glad that there was very little harvest taken there, and we need to continue to do that, because I think it's important that one, we as stated, it's a double-edged sword, but two, I think just kind of in light of like salmon fishing, we have a quota, and once we achieve that quota, then we close that tributary down to fishing. And I think in the same sense with this buffalo in West Yellowstone, if we have an MOA and we can discuss some of these things, but I think one of the things would be maybe if we discuss it would be like, put a number that we could live with, amongst the hunting parties to look at and see if we could just, take a number and use that as something as a benchmark, if you will, for quota in that area, so that each tribe or each hunting entity would maybe get 15 buffalo per se per tribe or per hunting group, so that we limit that amount that we would put in there as hunters. And so I think it's important that we do our part to protect the resource. And as you stated, the new tolerance zones and things of such, the memory group of the big bulls and the cows to take them out there, that's something that I always wanted to see a success story come from the new tolerance zones, and it's not going to happen with the way that we're managing and the way that we're hunting. So I would hope that we could come to some sort of understanding that quota is, find out what it is that we can live with in terms of harvest there, and then try to distribute that evenly amongst the hunting groups so that we, do our part in being stewards to the resource. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Eric. Other comments on the west side? Again, another item that has been talked about in the past is habitat manipulation. I know I see Tom's coming on with fire, and I know some of the Forest Service, there's been some discussion. So just opening the floor for that. Tom, please.
Yeah, thank you. We had proposals before to try to create a corridor in the old hunt area that would allow that pioneering to occur to get those buffalo up to that expanded habitat up to the Taylor Fork. So I think both, I know the state and us had drafted some language to try to do that. I think that in consideration with males only would be, should have its due consideration by all the hunt agencies if we are going to make advancements on expanding the population on the west side. So protecting the corridor, protecting the travel corridor with no hunting at all would be a good step forward. Other items, restrict the total count. I know we try to educate our hunters to males only for the west side. I know they try to do their part, and I think that was the bulk of our hunt. The few handful of bison that we did harvest was males only, but there might have been a cow or two. Anyway, that would be a good consideration for the hunt agencies to reconsider that proposal. Thank you.
Other west side thoughts?
Yeah, Scott, I can share updates
Hey,
from
Jason.
a vegetative manipulation standpoint. So Forest Service undertook the North Hebgen project back in 2015, signed a decision in 17. We're largely through litigation, although I think there is a pending case before the Ninth Circuit. We don't have an injunction issued on that yet. So if that stands, we have the potential for 3 projects to be active on the west side this summer. It would be what we're calling Hebgen Flats, which is, for those that are aware of the landscape, essentially from the transfer station north of West Yellowstone going west to Horse Butte. A second project would be in the Fur Ridge and Teepee Creek Road area, and then a third in the Red Canyon and Witts Lake area. And while those projects aren't specifically designed around bison habitat manipulation, all 3 projects will have the side benefit of increasing forage on the landscape for bison. It's still limited somewhat in what we'll see in terms of an increase in forage, just based on previous studies and discussion that has been had amongst the partners at IBMP meetings. Is it's just limited by the productivity of the landscape, but that will be ongoing, likely to start this summer.
Great, thanks very much for the update, Jason. Any questions for Jason or anything that has just gone by?
This is Adam with FWP. Just a quick couple comments from us. We still issue 40 permits for the west side. We don't have a restriction on sex of the species or harvest. Last year we harvested 10, which includes 5 females. I'm unaware of any discussions internally that would change that or limit that, but I think we're always open to suggestions. We did close last year, the year before, the northern portion of our hunting district 395 to hunting. So it would be the Gallatin watershed portion, which is kind of the northern end or northern half of hunting district 395 for bison. And that would include the Taylor Fork is kind of smack in the middle, and then a large portion of that migration corridor. As Tom mentioned, I know we've talked about the migration corridor, particularly along Highway 191, and a portion of that still is huntable within the Madison watershed portion of the 395 district. So the rest of the portions in the park are closed. And I think other tribes like the CSKT has also closed that northern portion of the hunting too, so that in the instance that bison do get to that northern portion, they would not be immediately harvested. It's still an ongoing conversation internally with us on how to improve use of that entire tolerance zone or available habitat.
Great, thanks very much, Adam. Just open the floor for everything that's been discussed about the west side. Are there any other comments that folks want to make about the west side operations, distribution, habitat, engagement with the public? Okay. Quincy, it might be a worthwhile check-in before we go to quarantine. My sense is we should just keep marching and we may actually be able to finish a little early. Is that acceptable with you? And just let folks take a break on their own if they need to?
10-4.
Yeah. So we'll just keep marching forward. And if you need a break on your own, please obviously feel free. Bison quarantine and translocation. I'm not sure, is Tim, are you going to start that or Cam? The Bison Conservation and Transfer Program.
I think we'll give it to Tim or Chris to start it off, and then we can have a conversation. I'm interested to hear what the tribal perspectives and questions are on this.
Got it, Chris.
Got voted onto the island. Right now, I don't have the agenda right in front of me, Scott. I was going to go through what's in quarantine right now in the park, outline this year, and then talk a little bit about our partnership and expansion. Maybe if you just shake your head, does that cover the agenda item, Scott? Thank you. So right now there are 25 males in the park quarantine facility. They're just coming on 3 years old. They've been in there since last winter. We're anticipating that all of those 25 males will complete the first 2 phases of quarantine and qualify their transfer to the Fort Peck tribes by December of this year. We're also holding 64 females within the park. They entered the quarantine facility this time last winter. 35 of those animals are coming 3-year-olds, 29 of those are coming 2-year-olds. So of those 64, that's a really big group of animals to run through calving at the same time. We're going to work with APHIS and basically break this group up into 3 subgroups that will all be on the same timeline. So in the last week of April, leading into that first week of May, we're going to transfer 10 of the coming 3-year-olds and 29 of the coming 2-year-olds. So 39 of the females over to APHIS for them to live in smaller groups as they go through calving. Those animals, so these what will become 3 groups will essentially all qualify as early as not this upcoming December, but the following December, so December of 22. We are initiating a partnership with Yellowstone Forever and the Greater Yellowstone Coalition. We're trying to expand the capacity of the current facility. This year, we couldn't take any animals in. We have, a small pen and a large pen, and, I just talked about how we're trying to deal with that. Through this partnership, we're trying to improve the facility that's within the park to having 5 pens that are all capable of running groups of animals, smaller groups of animals through quarantine through the whole process. We're trying to get to the point where we can have 200 animals in the quarantine facility within the park. Just to give some perspective, if we do that, and if APHIS continues to do what they're doing in the Gardner Basin of running, 2 other quarantine pastures, it would allow us to bring about 100 animals into quarantine every winter. Doing so, that accounts for most of the quarantine eligible animals that are captured each winter. So most of what would be eligible would be able to enter the program. And I think that's really the high points right now. We're hoping to get this started this summer.
Super, thanks, Chris. And just to answer your question, the potential expansion, the transfer program, the numbers, as you said, And then issues at Fort Peck, the transfers to, status of, and transfers away from are all the items that are on that list. Chris just laid out a lot of numbers and also the potential expansion and a new partnership. I don't know if Marty, Ryan, Becky, other folks want to come off of what Chris said, or Cam, if you have other comments, Cam or Tim. So floor is open for with respect to Bison quarantine and translocation. Let's start with that park part before we go on to the Fort Peck transfers and what's going on at Fort Peck with ITBC.
Scott, this is Tim. Do you have a good copy on me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you good. If I would just remember to turn my mute off.
Yeah, and I would because this stuff is pretty circular. I wanted to link back to the Jeremy and Chris's earlier conversation on catching the next gear level for coordination and kind of shared stewardship with hunting and capture operations. The conservation transfer program is it's a very positive thing. We've been successful to date with all of the partners involved. But next year, whether or not we have more pin capacity, as Chris outlined, we will have some room in the facility. And if conservation transfer program is going forward and that's what Cam as agency administrator wants to do, we will have to trap in order to feed the quarantine program. So this hunt trap coordination hunting bison conservation transfer program is a transboundary three-dimensional thing that's going on that requires everyone pulling the oars in the same direction. So I just wanted to plant that seed and underscore that, and that's the end of my report.
Thanks, Tim. Others? Ryan or Becky, Chris called out APHIS. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I would just add to Tim's remark that, with those targets that Chris spoke to, that a substantial number of animals need to be trapped, because by the time you windrow them out for age, sex, class, whether they're actually test positive for brucellosis or not, you need to trap a substantial amount of animals to reach that base core group of 100 animals to be put through quarantine. So I think everybody should be aware of that to kind of reach those numbers that are proposed.
Thanks, Ryan. Marty?
I was just going to ask a question for Dr. Clark. I think, did you guys say that you guys need to capture about 2.5 times the number of animals for quarantine? So like if you need 100, are we looking to capture, 200, 250 or something? What is that a typical capture yield? And I recognize that that's a moving target and can vary.
Yeah, it really is, Marty. I would have to get together with Chris to really kind of look at numbers that have been captured in the past to come up with a figure of a percentage of animals that make the cut, the percentage of animals that are captured to make the cut that go into phase 2 for final quarantine. I don't have a really good idea, just kind of off the cuff like this. Do you, Chris?
I do. It's about 1 in 3 animals qualify for quarantine. So, and there's a lot of ways that animals can be captured and run through the program, and through the whole deal. So for example, animals could be trapped, quarantine eligible animals could enter the program, quarantine ineligible, ones that don't qualify, older animals, pregnant animals, seropositive animals, so animals that are exposed to the disease, they could be shipped to slaughter and given to tribes. They could be released to support hunting. So there's a lot of things that we can do, and I think we're all trying to work together as a team here. But it does mean to make that happen, to get live bison back to tribes, we have to capture several hundred animals most winters.
Thanks. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and I think I asked that question out of general curiosity, but also to kind of set expectations. I think for, yeah, that's probably all I'll say about that.
I also I didn't want to step on Ryan's toes, but he also, were you going to cover some of the, some of the successes that you've had in this last year from getting more animals to the tribes and such?
Yeah, this is probably a good spot to add that to the conversation. So since the last meeting, we had 50 bison that graduated from the quarantine facilities. And those
Did everybody lose Ryan? I just did.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think we lost.
Oh, there you go. Ryan, just so you know, we lost you. You maybe need to speak closer to your microphone or something.
There's a sign on my computer that says your internet connection is unstable. Oh my gosh.
Well, better the internet connection well, never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. It's the internet connection, not me.
Yeah, we can hear you good right now.
Okay. So I'll just say it again. 50 bison graduated from the quarantine facilities in December, and we transferred 50 animals to the Fort Peck for assurance testing in February 5th. That was 22 cow-calf pairs and 6 bulls. And I will add that even though those females were calved out at Corwin Springs, they spent at least part of their quarantine period at Stevens Creek. So, which really goes to the fact that every year we really improve the collaboration between the two quarantine facilities, and that collaboration really increases the efficiency of both facilities separately. So we really want to thank Cam and Chris and Tim and Dustin and PJ for all their cooperation. We really are reaching a point where I think we're maximizing the resources of both facilities to what extent we can.
Great, thanks, Ryan. We'll keep this part open, but also can we move to the bison at Fort Peck? And I don't know if Arnell, if you would give an update on that, or if that would be Dan or Megan, maybe Megan. And
Scott?
Oh, please, Quincy.
Yeah, Scott, to Chris Jeremiah, you talked about the many different types of options, and you're gonna have to one out of 3 qualify for quarantine, and we mix all the qualifications, and you talked about ship to slaughter and releasing them for hunting harvest opportunities. How long does it take you to test, let's say 9 buffalo, and then you get 3 of them? How long does it take for you to, I guess, determine which ones qualify? And I would hope that you would, you talked about trust responsibility is releasing those buffalo immediately, because we're going to have a lot of hunters on the land, and particularly in the Gardner Basin. Thank you.
It's variable, and I say that because of limits. Without trying to dive too far into the details, it can take anywhere from a couple of days to a week to move animals through the facility, from the point that they're first captured to the point that we're trying to decide, are we diverting animals from slaughter and putting them in the quarantine program? Are we giving them to tribes, but consigning them to slaughter or doing something else? And the things behind those decisions will all go, all tie back to us working as a team to figure out how do we hunt in a way to get animals into the conservation area, the full conservation area? How do we support hunting? How do we not have so many bison in the conservation area that it overwhelms, what there's tolerance for? How do we meet population objectives? So all of those, there's not a single answer or a single, cookbook. I think I said an answer. So, all of those things will play into, how we make those decisions in the future.
This is Cam. Quincy, I think your question is right on, though. And what we'll commit to is turning those bison around as quickly as possible, and giving Chris the support that's necessary to do that, understanding that we've got smaller and smaller windows. The longer we hold bison that aren't going to enter quarantine or be consigned to slaughter, the less time they're going to be released and have you all have opportunities for hunting. Scott, I would, as you go around, my estimate this year, and we can talk, it could be the migration, the late migration, the difference in migration patterns is that without one bison being captured this year for slaughter or for quarantine, we're at about 35% of the low end of the population reduction target range. Now, I heard Tom talk about sending more hunters down to the boundary. The issue wasn't a shortage of hunters. The issue was bison not crossing the boundary. And so there's some good conversations that I've heard that I think we need to continue downstream about how we change and how we affect that. But as we go through this conversation, Scott, would like to hear is, and maybe from Daniel or Arnell first, what, the importance of us increasing the numbers of graduating bison, brucellosis-free bison that are being transferred to Fort Peck. I think it's important to also recognize that the 160 we've transferred since August of 2019, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, those through ITBC, we've distributed bison that have graduated assurance testing at Fort Peck to about 15 tribes across the country. I think that's a big success. I think that us understanding what the Assiniboine and Sioux and what ITBC think in relationship to the trust responsibilities that we feel we have also, in addition to supporting hunting, to get brucellosis-free bison onto larger landscapes and tribal lands is an important conversation. That's multiple tribes that support that. I'd like to hear from Tom. Tom and I had some good conversations this winter, and what's CSKT's perspective in relationship to any changes that we might make regarding consignment to slaughter and how that might affect and impact tribes that rely on the meat and the animals that are consigned to slaughter. And then obviously from the Nez Perce and the perspective of the importance of us supporting hunting on the boundary, which we do, and we're trying everything we can to continue that. Those are the three things that are important in different ways, and I think all three of them are important to different tribes, in some cases all tribes. But for us to actually better understand some of the specific perspectives of tribes on each one of these mechanisms that we use to manage the bison population, I think is an important conversation for us to have. And us trying to thread the needle in, like Chris said, being able to perhaps capture bison quickly, determine whether or not they're eligible for the program or not, and get them turned around so they can either be hunted or consigned to slaughter is an important thing. I'll tell you that ultimately, I would like to get us to a point where we've substantially reduced or eliminated how many bison get consigned to slaughter each year. And as we go through, and we need to be realistic about what, if we set a target for population reduction, what are the realistic chances of us hitting those targets using one or all three of those mechanisms. I think the highest year from a hunt standpoint, the highest number is somewhere around 400. I'm not saying that there are plenty of arguments that that would have been higher if we didn't capture and consign to slaughter. This has been an interesting year to see what happens if we only rely on hunting. And yeah, the migration patterns might have affected that, but I think it kind of proves the point that we may not be able to rely on any single mechanism from a population management standpoint, and that collectively as a team, a group of partners, that we're identifying what's the best way to use those tools effectively and accomplish multiple objectives.
Super, thanks, Cam. Cam started that discussion and laid out a lot of questions. We have sort of 20 minutes, which is great for the continuing this discussion. And Cam started initially with a request to ITBC just to talk about the disposition of the animals that have been moved. So can we hit that first, and then people can circle back with some of the questions Cam asked. Arnell or Dan?
Sure, Scott, I can talk about that. So I know Cam, I'll let you know that ITBC and the Fort Peck tribes are big fans of the Buffalo Conservation Transfer Program. We've really appreciated all the work the park's done and the other partners as well. Talking about ITBC, we are up to 72 member tribes now. We're growing at about 2 to 3 tribes every year becoming members. About trust responsibility to those tribes. A lot of them have off-reservation treaty hunting rights, and specifically the Great Sioux Nation, all the Sioux tribes have specific treaty language for buffalo, especially the Fort Peck tribe. So this conservation program really helps fulfill those tribes who might not have specific rights to hunt in Yellowstone, but also have rights to buffalo on their own, or their own goals to promote their sovereignty, their economic development, all the food sovereignty issues. And so this program helps those tribes across the country that ITBC services. So it's really great that this program benefits so many other tribes as well as the ones here at the IBMP.
Other thoughts, questions for Dan, Arnell? I don't know if you want to add anything or comments to return to Dan's comments. Or sorry, Cam's comments. My apologies. Well, both Dan and Cam. Cam, please.
No, I just would, my conversations with Chairman Azur and Majel and Daniel, I think the tribes have done a phenomenal job up at Fort Peck. It's been a great partnership. I think there's continued room for expansion and improvement. At the same time, we want to honor our trust responsibilities to the hunt, and you all helping us find that balance, I think is really essential for us moving forward. So thanks for that, Daniel.
Okay, please, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. This question for Daniel or Tim. The expansion of the quarantine pastures for Stevens Creek and getting up to 100 animals per year at that facility, does that match the capabilities of Fort Peck receiving animals?
So Tom, the Fort Peck facility can house up to 600 bison. So there's no problem with Fort Peck receiving all those animals. I was going to get into this a little bit later, but I'll just say it now, that Fort Peck currently has 3 pastures, so they can accept 3 different cohorts of buffalo. They're splitting their 160-acre pasture this summer, so they'll have 4 cohorts that they can receive. And then possibly in 2022, they might add a 5th pasture as well. So there's plenty of room at Fort Peck to take any animals from Stevens Creek or Corwin Springs in the future.
So in other words, the quarantine program in the park, if that was to expand to match Fort Peck, it would be up to 600 animals a year could be captured in the park. Is that correct?
I think one thing that's important is that animals take multiple years to go through the program. Different aged animals take different amounts of time, time than females. So there's not a complete one-to-one relationship. So if Fort Peck supports 600, it doesn't mean we could have 600 come in. If that makes any sense at all. But I think the bottom line is we're moving more towards a balance where we can minimize the number of captured animals that would go to slaughter and divert them from going to slaughter. There's enough space at Fort Peck to accommodate those as the Fort Peck tribes continue to work with USDA APHIS in particular to ensure that they're growing. And then ITBC, which plays a very critical role, continues with the Fort Peck tribes to distribute these animals widely across the things need to kind of stay lockstep together to make this.
And Tom, what I would say also to add to what Chris just said is, what we're contemplating now, which is still relatively speaking minuscule numbers, is probably the max that we could handle with our facility, even with the slight expansion that we're doing, staffing and things like that. So unless as a group downstream or other tribes bring on assurance facilities or whatever the case is, or quarantine facilities, it's doubtful that we would expand numbers beyond what we've outlined here in the foreseeable future, if ever.
I guess, Cam, question related to that, in the Department of Interior's, overreaching plan for managing buffalo in all Department of Interior lands, other parks, refuges, federal landscape. I know that's the genetics of the Yellowstone bison could be a critical component in that in the future. So I guess I would envision, I know the only willing partner right now is Indian tribes through that federal landscape, but as I would think that the program advances through time, that there would be additional locations besides Fort Peck that buffalo from Yellowstone could be transferred to. Is that a fair analysis?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I think that would be a great conversation and a great partnership to build over time with tribes. My previous job, we work closely with ITBC every year to move bison from Badlands, Teddy Roosevelt, and Wind Cave. 300-400 per year that went to ITBC. We also, allowed some of those bison to go to state conservation herds and also some partners like the Nature Conservancy and things like that. So I think to me, it's the tribes first. It's kind of talking about what's possible. I think it's continuing to work with the state, obviously, and APHIS about the protocols and how those might adjust over time, if at all, making sure we're staying within our trust responsibilities that transcend the Bison Conservation Transfer Program, like hunting, and try to balance all of those factors, not just with the Yellowstone bison, but across the agency and the Interior Department with our strategies.
Thank you. Just to kind of backtrack on the way that us Salish Kootenai tribes, the Salish, Gillespie, and Kootenai tribes of the Flathead Indian Reservation have taken their role as an active partner of the IBMP and to contribute as best we can as assist with the management of the Yellowstone buffalo. We stepped on the landscape with a large hunting force and seriously provided that opportunity and contributed to that as a management tool, and have advocated for that as the primary tool today and into the future. So, but as we saw the administrative harvest of buffalo keep coming forward, we stepped up to that too, to be an active partner with the administrative removal of buffalo. And so we created a very active program for that, as Cam and I have talked about in the past. So we've invested quite a bit of time and detail in that. And indeed, that's become a very important program for our tribes here. And so without that, if it's reduced or it's changed in the future, that's when I say we need to bring more hunters to bear. So it's not necessarily at Beatty Gulch, it's just simply the fact that we license between 300 and 800 bison hunters each year. And we're closest to the landscape. So we can bring more hunters to bear quickly when the opportunity arises. So if we're going to shift to less administrative harvest and more to hunting, we will return that force, or at least that potential for our hunters to be returned to the landscape. That would be an extension of our season. We have a very short season out there on the landscape. And so we would try to look at that through the expansion of the MOAs with the other tribes, with the Blackfeet Nation, especially they're close by. The Crow tribe starts hunting buffalo. We really need to include them and to allow buffalo to fully vet themselves in the entire tolerance area is critical for that to occur and get this kind of hunting pressure that would hit that range, that floating range we might have. I think the one thing that would be the easiest thing for us to determine would be what would go into the quarantine program yearly. And so if Chris's estimate of 100 a year, that's something that we can work with. And certainly that's, if you can identify that and that's a solid number each year, then we know that's going to occur. And that helps us quite a bit in trying to manage the hunt partners. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and as you and I talked about several times, Tom, I think you all have been tremendous partners, and we understand that there's people that are relying on that meat, and it's not something we should just flip a light switch and turn off. I think there's the probably only generally predictable, to your point, number that we could calculate would be what we would take into quarantine. I don't know that any of us are good enough to truly estimate how many could be taken out by hunting. I think that we should try to do a better job of identifying. If we've got a $500 to $700 animal reduction target, what are the targets we need to hit through hunting? What can be taken into quarantine, and what remaining may go to consignment to slaughter? I think those are important for us to try to do a better job of estimating, because it can kind of help us use those tools differently. If we said that, only hunting and quarantine, and we were still going to be less than 50% of our reduction target, that's not going to work unless we just go hands off completely on managing the bison numbers, the buffalo numbers in the park, and we're willing to see numbers that are thousands and thousands higher than they are right now. We're probably not there yet, but I think we can. That we should all strategize on figuring out a better way to estimate what numbers we realistically think we can get. The reality is the conditioning of the bison right now, at least lately, and the different migration patterns, I think it would have been really hard for us to get anywhere close to even the low end of that reduction target with hunting alone. And people may argue with me on that, but if we're sitting at 169 bison out of a range of 500 to 700 we were shooting for, we've got to use some of these other mechanisms to do that. And I think there's a way forward in using all three of them. But like I said earlier, I would I would like to see. I don't think we'll ever get away from it completely, but a substantial reduction in the numbers we consign to slaughter later. And we'll look forward to working with all of you to understand what those impacts look like and what your perspectives are on any of those 3 areas that we use and whatever else that you think would be good for us to consider.
Can I add something there, Scott?
Please, Megan. And then after you're done, we'll do a time check, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan. I'm the wildlife biologist for ITBC, and I oversee the surplus buffalo program. I just wanted to add that, when these Yellowstone buffalo are eligible to graduate from the Fort Peck facility, we put out an RFP to all 72 member tribes, and it's a great venue for getting these animals out to, all tribal lands to start herds that can continue those genetics getting out there and establishing herds on tribal lands. We did send Yellowstone buffalo to 2 of the tribes that hunt in the Yellowstone area this past year, and we have RFPs that will come out in June or July. So I would invite all of the tribes that are involved with ITBC, especially if these adaptive management strategies are shifting a little bit and there's some changes to the bison conservation transfer programs, that the more animals that we can get out there to your tribes alive too, that can also help fulfill that trust responsibility and accomplish kind of access and continuing that relationship alive with these animals. So please just get in touch with us if you have any questions about that or want to kind of look into that further. We would love to send you some animals, and we do that all at ITBC's cost as well. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Super, thank you. Quincy, I'm just looking at the time versus the schedule we worked on the other day, and we're about at the end where, and I'm wondering if you're all right with moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had one comment.
Okay, let's give Jeremy the last comment on this, and unless there's a question from that, please, Jeremy.
Maybe it's just more or less some data that kind of is a derivative of Cam's concern. I think that's kind of gets at the fundamental question that we have. As hunt and the hunt entities, I think that it's one of the messaging that we're trying to get across in our orientation that, we're over there exercising the treaty right, but we're also over there assisting with this plan, with this effort. So we're not only hunters, but we're also being utilized as somewhat of a tool for this management. And so with that being said, in the numbers, kind of speak for themselves, but we also got to be recognize the fact that it just seems like, whether it be climate change or whether whatever the reasons may be, not only are the animals not moving until later in the season, the entire season is shifting, but how many actually were coming out? Is anybody tabulating that? I know we're counting how many animals we're taking, how many animals are trapped, but are we getting actual numbers of animals total that have actually come out of the park? And then we can also, address some of the details with the hunt itself. I think the technique, like I said earlier, about how to get the animals out of the park or out of Beatty Gulch versus, some shooting the animals at the head of the herd or whatever and pushing them back into the park. That's something that we can work on, maybe individually, but that broader scope of what animals are coming out. And that's kind of why I was asking about West Yellowstone too. As we push and pull and turn dials here, those things kind of impact the central herd or the movements out of West Yellowstone and vice versa. So I think those are some of the more M&E kind of questions that kind of come out of this long-term planning and how we effectively do this. I think there are certainly rooms for improvement for the hunt to be more efficient in that, and not only taking animals, but pushing animals out, as Chris was alluding to, into the greater landscape. Maybe they don't even come back to Yellowstone. So there's a number of numbers that I think that need to be assessed beyond just saying, well, the hunt only took this much, the trap needs to take more. Or that we need to have kind of a more broad number and understanding of these movements or lack thereof of the animals in and out of the park. And I think that kind of gets us to what that carrying capacity has always tried to do for Yellowstone. It needs to be pushed out into the greater landscape. And that begs all sorts of other questions as well, as far as that stress upon all that land out there. But that's kind of the understanding, I think, as we move forward, that is that number that we need to understand for both those efforts to work together, and not just saying that there is a specific number we're looking for. That it seems like we've gotten away from that, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong. That's all. Thank you.
Jeremy, I think Cam would like to make a comment, but then let's close this down, or we won't be able to wrap up by noon. Cam, please.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Jeremy's talking about. I think we do have some data actually on that, so we can circle back. I think that's a good kind of next level conversation to have. I also want to remind people that, of the estimated 5,000 buffalo in Yellowstone right now, somewhere less than 10% actually migrated into the Gardner Basin this year. And so how climate change and other factors affect those migration patterns, I think, is going to be a fundamental factor in what we may do downstream as well, especially as those windows to exercise any of these things we're talking about are shorter and maybe further into the year. But we've got Chris. I know Chris has got some good data, and the team does, that we can share on some of the numbers of bison that are actually going or leaving the boundary. Thanks.
Okay. If it's all right, in the interest of time, we'll just move forward. So that gets us through the quarantine, the west side. The partners use this meeting to introduce any adaptive management changes. That honestly has not been done for the last 4 or 5 years, because most of the operations have ended up in the winter ops. But per the protocols, I'll just ask, is anyone planning on adding suggesting an adaptive management change to the adaptive management program this year? I have not received anything. That usually comes to me in the form of an email or something. And Quincy, I don't believe you have either. Okay, we get 5 minutes back there. So short status updates. I believe we've done Fort Peck, Dan. Is that correct, or do you need anything else on Fort Peck?
I would just say that, right now we have 2 groups, one of that 50 that Ryan talked about, and then we have another group of 11 males. So, and I think back to Tom's point, the reason Fort Peck can take 600 animals is because the facility covers about 380 acres. But we've only been receiving groups, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but about 30 animals in each cohort. So the facility is very underused at this point.
Okay, the other status updates are on bison related bills, an update, if any, on the status of Brucella abortus, description of the new EIS, if any, and then updates on lawsuits. So for Mike and for Dan, I guess, Dan, we've got you on there now, status update on bison related bills to be considered by the Montana legislature. I don't know if you guys decided who would start or whatever.
Dan can start.
Go ahead, Mike.
All right, Dan's on mute, so I'll start. And then I think Mike Valesky or someone from FWP.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Jump
yes,
on,
my apologies. Mike Valesky as well.
With another bill that Department of Livestock is more on the FWP side. So the two that I was going to address were House Bill 302 is the number for it. So its short title is County Relocation of Bison. And then House Bill 318, short title, Clarify Definition of Bison. So on House Bill 302, the nuts and bolts of the bill is that it would require or allow county commissioners to have to approve establishment of wild bison within a county jurisdiction or within their county's jurisdiction. If FWP or Department of Livestock or some other agency wanted to establish a population of wild bison within that county. I do believe the bill had carve outs that obviously counties do not have jurisdiction over tribal land. So, the tribal governments are still free to establish wild bison populations. The county cannot overstep that jurisdictional boundary and get in the way of that. It also, I think, had some carve outs that made sure that it exempted the program we have going on our quarantine with the capture of bison at Stevens Creek, the quarantine of bison and the transfer to tribes to try to avoid stopping that process, which has sort of become status quo over the last couple of years. And as far as, I'll try to be at a very high level on it. I know there's a lot of other language in there, but at a high level, that's what the intent of the bill was to try and do. It is almost through the legislature. It's on the Senate floor now, which is its last house. So I presume it will be getting through the Senate and signed by the governor sometime in the near future. And then the House Bill 318 clarified definition of bison. Just very high level intent of that bill was to change in state code the definition or add to the definitions of bison to declare that a bison that had been subject to per capita fee, which is the livestock tax we assess per head on livestock in the state. So domestic bison in the state do pay that fee. Wild bison do not have to pay that fee, and tribal bison do not have to pay that fee. But domestic bison, such as Turner ranchers and some of the commercial producers have to. APR is another entity that is subject to have to pay that as their bison are classified as domestic. So it would just clarify that those bison that have been subject to that fee cannot in turn become wild. In other words, gifted or given into the public trust and become wild bison. I know, and Dan may want to add on to that because I know there was a lot of conversation, from different tribal entities about confusion about how that affected tribes' ability to source bison from domestic herds that they may want to bring onto the tribal jurisdiction and then in turn call wild, and whether that would create any hardships for them in trying to reestablish bison across other tribes. So Dan can probably speak to those concerns more than I can. I just know that's what the intent was. And that bill was on the Senate floor, and again, another one that I think is probably headed towards the governor's desk and headed towards a governor's signature at this point. That would be the reading of the tea leaves, but things can always change before a bill is done. So that was House Bill 302 and 318. I'll step back and let Dan add anything to those two, or Mike add anything to those two. But the other three, Department of Livestock, I would let others speak to those as opposed to Department of Livestock.
Thanks, Mike and Dan, and as briefly as possible if folks are trying to get to lunch at noonish.
Sure. So just real quick on 318 there, the tribes testified against that bill because it only provided a carve out for tribal members and excluded the tribes proper from wild buffalo. So thankfully in the Senate hearings, the Senate amended that bill to include tribes proper. So now it's being sent back to the House for concurrence there before it goes to the governor. And then I'll just go into two bills that were introduced with significant ITBC involvement. One was House Bill 311 and the other was House Bill 312. And they were both introduced by Representative Weatherwax of the Blackfeet Nation. So HB 311 would allow buffalo transfers to Montana tribes from federal national parks and preserves and other tribes, and would also fix a bill from the 2019 legislative session. And so it also would conform Montana law to federal law and US Supreme Court case law that forbids states from interfering with federal tribal wildlife efforts without significant state contributions to the program or substantial off-reservation effects. And then HB 311 would allow wild buffalo to be transferred from a federal agency to tribal entity for quarantine purposes on the tribal entity's reservation prior to certification of brucellosis-free status by the state veterinarian. And so that would solidify the Fort Peck tribe's ability to participate in phase 2 of the Buffalo Conservation Transfer Program. And then both bills would modify MCA 812120 to change the various definitions of qualified tribal entity, Indian tribal organization, all to just tribal entity. And the reason for that was just concerns about the state determining which tribal entity is qualified and what qualified means. So, and because like I said, the transfer program is a federal tribal program, the state shouldn't have jurisdiction to determine which tribes are qualified in that. And so it shouldn't be in state law. And then it also would have removed the department's ability to adopt rules governing tribal participation in the federal tribal program as well. And then those who supported those bills were ITBC, the Fort Peck Tribe, CSKT, and then numerous conservation organizations. So I'd like to thank all of them for their support in this effort. Unfortunately, these bills were both tabled in committee, but anyone who wants to go see all that testimony, you can go to the Montana Legislature's website to see all that.
Thanks very much, Dan. Over to Mike Valesky, not Mike Honeycutt.
Yeah, so really only 5 bison bills introduced this session. 4 of those you've just heard about. The only other one that was excuse me, introduced was Senate Bill 255, which dealt with a super tag and a lottery for bison. So moose, sheep, goat, species like that, there's lottery for each of those, and if you pay your $5 for a chance in that, you can get that super tag, just one of those for each of those species in a year. This bill would have directed that money, which can be substantial, to the tune of a couple $100,000 or something like that, would direct that toward bison management. And then the bill also created an auction, and we have that for some of those species as well, where there's an auction, there's one tag for some of those species, where there's an auction, and that can be substantial as well. And the bill was directing that to bison management as well, earmarking that essentially. That bill was tabled in committee, and so I wouldn't see that one coming back up again.
Great, thanks very much, Mike. We'll just keep popping through these.
Scott,
Please.
I have one question for Mike Honeycutt. So 318, so any bison, by default, any bison resident in Montana and not paying a per capita fee would be termed a wild bison?
Mike Honeycutt, are you still out there?
That sounds good, Ryan. Go with it.
Mike Valesky or Dan, are you able to answer that question, or anyone else?
Yeah, I can answer it. There were also previous confinements that they couldn't be reduced to captivity or owned by a person. So those restrictions are in there as well.
Yes, essentially, the old language in that statute said a wild buffalo or bison means a bison that has not been reduced to captivity and is not owned by a person. That was changed to has not been reduced to captivity, has never been subject to the per capita fee, has never been owned by a person, and is not the offspring of a bison that has been subject to the per capita fee. So it certainly narrowed the scope of what can be defined a wild bison in Montana.
Okay.
Scott, I
if I could just mention real quickly, my name is Brendan Moynihan. I work for the National Park Service, and I also presently chair the Department of Interior's Bison Working Group, which brings together the Park Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, BIA, BLM, and the USGS. Just specifically to this topic, I'm happy to share with you, Scott, to distribute to the group a 2-pager that I was asked to prepare at the request of the National Parks Conservation Association for their testimony to the legislature on some of these bills. And the scope of it is concerning the rationale behind the designation, the recognition of bison as native North American wildlife in the DOI Bison Conservation Initiative that we had announced by the Secretary of Interior last year. So Scott, I'll share that with you, and perhaps you can make it available to the group.
You bet. Thanks, Brendan. And I can put that on the website for this meeting. We'll move on. Marty, is there any update on the status of removing Brucella abortus? We keep this one on the list just because it has not closed, I don't think. But let me know if it should come off the list.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. We must have talked about outdoor research. Yeah, we did, because that was our last meeting was in December. So there has not been any formal response to the best of my knowledge. Brucella abortus remains on the select agent list. I have not seen a formal response aside from USDA's commitment to re-permit the existence of or the us to be able to conduct outdoor research. We are in the process of identifying some projects and communicating those to other federal agencies to try to push them in the direction of kind of identifying what the costs for those projects would be, and kind of defining some of those research efforts. So that, I guess that part is new. So, but aside from that, there is not anything significant, tangible at the moment.
Great.
For developments. Yeah.
Thank you. For the Park Service, description, current status, update, timeline, if any, on the new Bison EIS. And there may be none.
This is PJ. We've been working on a notice of intent to publish in the Federal Register announcing our preparation of an EIS that, beyond blunt, got held up a little bit with the change in administrations. And now that we have a Secretary of Interior confirmed, I expect we'll make more progress this spring and summer on that. So that's where we are.
Great, thanks, PJ. I know in previous versions you have given update on lawsuits as well. Are you going to do that as well?
I can do that. In late December, the Cottonwood Environmental Law Center appealed the district court order granting us a motion for voluntary remand of the court case while we prepare additional NEPA and the Bison management plan. As far as I know, there hasn't been any movement since that. On the Neighbors Against Bison Slaughter case in February, the court granted our motion, or the government's motion, for voluntary remand. Again, while we work on additional NEPA, and I've not heard whether they intend to appeal or not.
Great, thanks, PJ. Let's see, updates. That gets us through the updates that we had called in or recorded or carried over from last time. Are there any other updates that folks want to bring up? Tom, please.
John mentioned that they did appeal the neighbor's case.
Yeah. Did John have a comment he wanted to bring up on that or not?
Hey guys, no, it's good. PJ pretty much just wrapped it up. Cottonwood and Neighbors are both at the 9th Circuit, and we'll wait and see what happens. The MOA tribes are amicus parties in the Neighbors case, but not the Cottonwood case. We anticipate we'd be amicus in the 9th Circuit. As that moves forward, we'll see what happens. Thanks.
Thanks, John. it's kind of fun when the camera gets moved and you see what else is going on in other places. Anyone else, any other updates that folks want to bring out? And shockingly, we are going to be on time, it looks like. Anything else?
You want to see everything, Scott.
I can imagine that. Okay, Quincy, it's going to come back over to you with lead partnership and discussion of the last item to discuss is what will happen with the remaining 2 meetings this year. Will they be in person? Won't they be in person? How will we decide and sussing out with the partners? We want to take it away with that discussion on your thoughts?
Yeah, no, thank you, Scott. It would be really nice to get people's feedback as soon as possible, maybe preferably end of May, June. If you would feel comfortable in sending 1 or 2 representatives from the IBMP table, it would be nice to host the August meeting here at our Clearwater River Casino and Event Center. We have a huge event center. We could practice all safety protocols. If federal entities and other tribes wanted to send in, some of their recommendations, we would do the best that we can to enforce ours and also include yours. If you would like plexiglass around you, or if you would want all the servers to be vaccinated, or if we had to show that, we would do the best that we can to go above and beyond to host that meeting in person. And it'd be nice to have it here in Nez Perce country at our hotel and casino. It's usually nice and beautiful around that time of the year. Rivers are open, people are swimming and kayaking. Our golf course would be open. Those who like to golf, come over and bring their golf clubs. And I would just like to see what from the IBMP partners of what they would think if we could swing that, and then if we could have the in-person meeting in December, either in Bozeman or in Chico, to accommodate the IBMP partners there.
Folks have some feedback for Quincy. I know that when our pre-meeting, we talked about this quite a bit. Cam, I see Marty, please, everyone.
I was just going to say, Quincy, thanks for really outlining how accommodating the tribe could be to host the state of Montana there. I think that sounds promising. I think I will just say that we will take direction from the governor, and so we're probably in a holding pattern until we receive some additional guidance and allowance for out-of-state travel. So, but hopefully by June, as you mentioned, that will be available, and we'd love to get back to you, and a meeting there sounds good.
Thank you, Marty.
Yeah, and Quincy, we think it's a great idea, and we'll do everything possible to be there, and I think that's very viable. Very supportive of it.
Thank you, Cam.
Yeah, we also like the idea, and we'll send feedback when it's closer to the meeting date.
Thanks, Marina. Jeremy?
Yep, thank you. And yeah, I had a brief conversation with Quincy about this as well, and I think it's a great idea as well. But at the same time, should we just plan for that? I think it's easier for us, or probably be easier for Nez Perce to just plan for that to occur, so they can get everything going. I think that's probably being a host for different things here. I mean, I know that's always a difficult task, is making sure you have everything all aligned out, and hotels and office space or conference rooms, whatever. Because we could always just revert back to the Zoom, but it would be a little bit more difficult to do the other way. So that would be my recommendation, is just that we plan for that to occur in the summertime, and then Bozeman would likely follow suit. But that's my thought.
Sure. Other Tom?
Oh, I'll let others comment first.
Okay, Tom, Kathy, other people, thoughts?
Bing can respond as far as our council direction.
Scott, a couple weeks ago, the chairman lifted our travel status. He said if it's a necessity and we can travel, that we can go. So I guess it's just kind of a up in the air deal to, from the time in July, how things are going here with COVID. That we'll decide if we can be able to attend or not. But like I say, if it's a necessity, we might be able to travel down there.
Thanks, Bing. Kathy, Arnell, I'm trying to think who else we haven't heard from.
Yeah, right now we would have to get permission from the regional forester to travel, but by August that might change. And so definitely it would be exciting to have a face-to-face meeting. So definitely not opposed to it. It would just depend upon what the COVID travel restrictions would be for us.
Thanks, Kathy. And by the way, people are mentioning August. The meeting is July 21st this year. Please, Arnell, are you able to address?
I think that we are open to meeting in person as well. We have finally lifted our travel ban, but we are also not requiring our staff to travel at this time.
Sure. Thanks, Arnell. Sorry, Quincy, I interrupted you a moment ago.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, I appreciate everybody's feedback. And I would just be rest assured as you report to your superiors, and Marty talked about report to the governor, the Forest Service report to their superiors in the Park Service. We follow a very strict what's called the EOC, Emergency Operations Committee, and there's members of the policy, there's members of the OLC, the land, hospital. The hospital. Yeah, Nimipu Health. We have Dr. Hartwig is a NESPERS travel member, and she's a part of that. And also Roberta Bisbee. She's our executive director of the Nimipu Health, and I would thoroughly consult with them on extreme protocols. If you guys gave me all of your concerns or recommendations what to follow, I'd be more than happy to take those in and address those through our EOC. And also, if we were able to do this, I would thoroughly conduct or meet with the EOC members and also share with you all the extreme measures that would be taken in place and following, just so that you could have it in documentation form and maybe a peace of mind.
A couple items. Ryan, or is that Ryan coming in? I was just going to say, Ryan.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Quincy. And frankly, we probably would need some kind of summary of the safety measures that you're going to be taking in order to have our agency be comfortable with us traveling to an in-person meeting. And that may, again, along with all the uncertainty around COVID-19, that may change by August. I mean, they may not have any qualms by August, as long as vaccination proceeds. Yeah, as long as vaccination proceeds expeditiously with us traveling in August. But I think that would probably be an essential piece of information at this time.
I see Marty and Mike as well.
All I would say, Quincy, thank you again. I think for us, probably, while I personally appreciate the prior planning and the precautions that the tribe would be making, I think, the expectation is the governor would probably make a universal recommendation for all state employees, kind of one size fits all. So it'll really, for us at least, I would imagine it will depend more on what the state posture is than what the specific circumstances of any one event are regarding the decision. Although, again, personally, I truly appreciate people really taking the epidemiology of this virus seriously and trying to minimize the likelihood of a super spreader event.
Mike Valesky?
Well, I tend to agree exactly with what Marty just said. I got to take the opportunity here to introduce another wrinkle. The tribal treaty hunt meeting that we typically host in Missoula has a huge overlap with the membership here on this call. And a couple of weeks ago, I think you may have received an email trying to schedule that. I think that the dates mentioned there had been like May 19th or 26th, and asking what worked best. Considering this conversation, there's been plenty of spike in the ball on the 5-yard line here when it comes to COVID, and we don't want to do that. And the fact that we're having this conversation about a July-August meeting makes me think, really think twice about having a May meeting in Missoula. Last year, we did not have that meeting due to COVID goings on, and so in my mind, not to complicate this one, but it's relevant because in my mind there are probably 3 options. One is not to have that meeting again. Much of what's covered in that meeting is covered in IBMP meetings as it relates to treaty hunting. The other is, postpone it further out if we think it's necessary. And yet another, I think, is to have that meeting by Zoom. So, and maybe there's another option I'm not thinking of, but as we're considering this, it could be that much of what we cover there is covered in an IBMP meeting anyway, or we could make that adjustment, I would say. And so I would just throw it out there and see what others think about that tribal treaty hunt meeting.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Mike, I think I'd be in talking with the staff here and with some of the other commissioners and seeing how things were operating. There's always room for improvement. I think we need to have the meeting. I could thoroughly support either in person with limited staff or via Zoom. But I think it'd be important to follow through with that, Mike. And I think that it was the 18th or the 26th.
Yeah, that's right. 19th or 20th.
Or 19th or 20th, yeah.
So like Tom had something to say.
Yeah, yeah, Mike. A lot of times at the various IBMP meetings, at least the MOU tribes, we always try to gather the day before. So maybe, thinking about that, maybe there's opportunity to meet in Lapway beforehand, sister the 2 meetings together, the hunt management agency meeting beforehand, of course.
That's how we used to do.
And then just, kill 2 birds with that same meeting location and time frame. Certainly a possibility.
Anybody else with respect to that? And if not, Quincy, I have a suggested way to sum this up, but let's hold it for a second. Anybody else with respect to either meeting, the hunt management meeting or the IBMP meetings?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment real quick that I was going to have that meeting on the 26th of May. I was going to confirm that date. I sent it out and the majority did want an in-person meeting with a handful that we could just social distance and bring our own PPE. So I'll send out another meeting invite on that. If you want it back to back, I'm open to that, but I want this meeting so that the members of the public and the sportsmen can have a platform we can hear their voices as well.
Thanks, Ben. All right. Relative to it being 2 minutes to noon and the group working hard to work on within the timeline, Quincy, let me suggest this possibility. in setting expectations with what you and I talk about and then what we communicate out to the group, that in July, as the meeting is set for the 21st, Jeremy put in a really great comment to everybody. How about planning it as an in-person and Zoom meeting? So the expectation would be that it would be in Lapway. Some people would attend, some people would attend by Zoom. This all can be modified all the way back to just a Zoom meeting. And sort of the expectation, it would be reduced attendance instead of 60 or 80, it might be 20 or 30 or 40. And then in December, as a default plan for an in-person meeting, like you said, in Bozeman or Chico, we can't decide 100% today. Thoughts on that, Quincy, for the group?
Yeah, and also too, I like that combination of in-person and we certainly have the capabilities to have Zoom there as well. And also Mike brought up, well, maybe if we have to, we can push the meeting back into the 1st of August, the first 2 weeks of August or something, just so that we have adequate planning. If we have, if there hasn't been a decision by the governor of Montana for to allow traveling, and it hasn't come out by then, maybe we should plan for somewhere in August.
Yeah, I'll just add for the group, I think because of how hard it is to find times, that it might be tough to get everybody to switch over. So can we start with where we're at and then do that changeover if we need to, based on things like the governor, what the governor says and so forth, or the governor's plans?
Yeah, that's fine with me, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll reflect that in the notes. We are sitting at noon. Does anybody else have something critically important he needs to bring up? And if not, we'll give Quincy a final time to say goodbye. But I see Marty and Mike both are unclicked. And Jeremy, please.
Jeremy, go ahead.
I'm trying hard to get us to there, Marty.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I guess really quick, this meeting, I'm just curious, next year, seems like we, Nez Perce, and some others, Blackfeet maybe, are ending our hunt on March 31st. So it'd be nice if we could have at least a week or two to get our bearings post-hunt, and then have this meeting. I think it would be a little bit more more conducive to being able to be prepared for finalizing and summarizing our hunt and any coordination things that need to be done. I'm just really kind of giving you guys a lot of what I've been hearing. I still haven't really sat down with our commission and addressed some of the concerns and suggestions for improvement. That'll come, but I think it'd just be a benefit to this particular meeting to move it back a little bit after our last day of our hunts. That's all. Thank you.
Jeremy, I'll add that to the parked item list. Marty and Mike. And so it will come up again, I guess is my point. Marty?
I had a couple of thoughts on this summer meeting we're talking about, Scott, and if other folks disagree, I'm totally happy to take a back seat. But number one is summers are, as we all know, are get booked overwhelmingly and rapidly. And I would suggest that if we have a fallback date, we should look at the calendars now and just pick one, because it's going to get that much harder to identify a 2-day, particularly for an in-person, for a 2-day or 3-day commitment where that would require travel. That would be one point I would make. The other one, a little bit more maybe on the opinion side is, I think I'm happy to plan for an in-person meeting. I think try to do a hybrid becomes a very difficult. It has to be one or the other would be my suggestion, because to try to do a hybrid, you wind up having to mic people that are not sitting in front of their computers. Otherwise, they're not oftentimes heard, into video. But I guess you have experience with that, Scott. So maybe that's a smaller issue.
Yeah, sounds good. Mike Gillespie?
Quincy, is there a is there a drop dead date that it would be helpful to know by whether we're able to all actually meet in person as far as planning goes in Lapway?
I'd probably say mid to late June, if you could let us know.
Yeah.
That would give us at least a good solid month to plan for the meeting.
So we may know by, I don't know if it's June 15th or June 30th, we may know a lot more. And maybe we for now plan for an in-person meeting. And if it can't be, I think it's easy enough to Zoom. It's much easier to plan that, to get that Zoom meeting pulled together. So plan like it's in person, pick a date in August today. And that covers that. Then the other thing here that is still hanging fire that I'm not clear on, at least, is whether we should have a Zoom meeting in May that is the tribal treaty hunt meeting, or if we should piggyback that onto our summer meeting, our summer IBMP meeting.
I think we should go ahead and plan with the May hunters meeting.
And and are you advocating in person or Zoom?
My personal preference would be in person, but if other tribes are the state can't be there, Zoom is perfectly fine with me.
Okay, so I guess we will do the same. If we proceed with the other that way, we'll proceed with this one that way. Make plans. I think it makes me nervous actually to plan that for a May meeting. That's only a short month away, actually a month and a half away, sort of thing. And I don't know where we'll be, but I'm less comfortable with that than an August meeting. I'm just not sure what to do with that. But we've got so many of the players here. I would hate not to take advantage of having most everybody on the phone and come to some understanding.
Okay, so there's a couple things on the table, I guess. The the hunt managers meeting. I'm not quite sure where we've come down on that, but I'm pretty sure that people would like to, Marty asked to get a second date that would be an August date. Again, we went through several weeks, if not a month after the December meeting to get to July 21st. I know that Cam has GYCC meetings and Mary and other people, so that was tough. Do we want to, I can throw out some meeting dates in August right now, or I can also go through a poll. How about August 4th? I think we did this already again, and I think that Cam and Mary particularly had some conflicts in early August.
I can do second week. I can't do anything the first week of August.
Okay. And so I have a wedding, not that I matter, but the 10th, how about the 10th of August? Is there anybody who can't do the 10th Tuesday of August? Or the 11th Wednesday of August? Okay, going once.
No, hold on now, Scott. That is an epic day for us. We meet the second and fourth Tuesday of every month.
How about Wednesday, the 11th? Would that work, Quincy?
I got a hot date that. Yeah, the 11th or 12th or the 13th would be fine too. And we were thinking, we're just having some side discussion here. What if we wanted to have the hunters meeting the day before the regular IBMP meeting?
For the IBMP, can we put as a alternate date, the current date is July 21st that was agreed upon across the board. Can we put August 11th as the alternate date? If that would give three more weeks, I guess, if it just happened to be at that cusp. Okay, and the hunt management potentially before that or after that?
Scott, I was looking at Mary's calendar and it looks like the 11th probably would work for her based on what I
Thanks.
can see now.
Thanks, Kathy. I think Mike Gillespie, I think you were bringing up the hunt managers meeting the most. Do you want to try to figure out the final date, or no, it could be before the 11th or after the 11th if it was tied to the IBMP meeting?
Yeah, I think the first question there is, I think I've got to say in person, it may be real tough for folks still in May. We just don't know. And so either a Zoom meeting in May or potentially tie it to the August meeting. And so I'm wide open on that.
Yeah, Scott, how about, what if we go the hunters meeting on the 11th and the regular IBMP meeting on the 12th?
I can see that for everybody. I'm officiating a wedding, and so I don't think I can be there, but that doesn't matter because if someone else can do this part of it. So yes, if that's what folks would like to do.
Yeah, this is fine. Well, that late in the week, we'll have to find somebody else to stand in for us for APUS. I'll be unavailable. Becky will be unavailable. So that doesn't mean we can find somebody to stand in for us.
Okay, should I put those down then, Quincy?
Scott, now we're kind of jumping back to the original 21st. You mentioned, should we just plan for the 21st? And if we have to, push it back later into August if we have to, and then maybe keep the hunters meeting via Zoom at the end of May.
That's for me, that sounds great.
How about the other partners, Mike, Cam?
Yeah, we're good. We can Park Service can make either one of those, and it'll probably be Tim and I and maybe a few others, but we'll only send people up that are vaccinated. So that'll be kind of our red line there. So we'll look forward to that. Whichever one you go with, we'll make work.
Yeah, Scott, let's just stick with that, the 21st of July.
Okay.
IBMP meeting, and then the hunters meeting via Zoom on the 26th of May.
Yeah, Scott, this is Quinn. I'll keep it on the 26th because the majority responded back that date worked. And if we can't have it in person, after talking with Mike Valesky and my other leadership, we'll have it Zoom.
Yeah, sounds good.
So are we keeping the 11th of August as a fallback then? Is that correct? Or did that get scratched?
I think that since it's out there, we'll keep it as a fallback, but I think it's scratched as far as it's definitely not the first idea. That will be so if people want to put a Lynn pencil on the 11th, potential, it's a little, I guess I'm a little skeptical, honestly, that if the 21st is too early, that the 11th is okay, but that's a whole different question. Quincy, I think we've got a plan then. And as lead partner, I think we can close down and you have the floor to close us up.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Thank you for getting us, making sure we always run nice and smooth, the pre-meetings. I just want to say thank you to all the entities, the other respective sovereigns. I really want to tip my hat to each law enforcement entity that's out there. I think they're when we first started working on all this stuff in 2007, all the way up to now, I can honestly say it's dramatically improved. Communication, the relations, personal relations, and it's just, most importantly, I want to keep it safe. And we have to do the best that we can to speak, from our own perspectives, but also listen to each other and do the best that we can to come up with good decisions, and be that voice for our brothers and sisters inside that part. And so I just want to leave it at that. Hopefully everybody has a really good good spring. I'm glad to see all the faces online. Hope to see you all in person. and just continue to practice good measures, and hope to see you all in July. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Kaylani, by the way, for again running a smooth show. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.